So there's that way to approach it as well. But there's a bunch of problems with it. Sup, yes. George Carlin's great. I haven't heard his sketch about it though. Like, he said a lot of interesting things historically, but I don't think I've heard his sketch about free will. Something to do with donuts. Alright, anyways, I think the stream is somewhat started. At least on the Red app. Over on the Red app, I got a vote going, asking the question: should people be allowed to own multiple properties? So far, it's 50-50 on the vote, but then again, how many people have seen the stream? So, oh, actually, I think we can do stream. We can do votes on this one, can't we? We can do polls on TikTok, perhaps. It's not bringing up a window. There we go. Custom. Alright. I like that one. Would you rather always be right or always be happy? Let's leave that one for another time. Let's create a new one. Multiple properties. Probably going to make a mad spelling mistake. Alright. It says it's under review, so you can't just make a poll and just throw it out there. You have to review it. That's kind of dead. Okay, start. Oh, it's timed as well. That sucks. So it can't just stay for the whole stream. It's like timed in the background. Right, I'll move that over. Yeah, I'm trying to do admin stuff and stream at the same time. It's not great. Anyways, if anyone wants to request up and have a conversation about any of the topics on the screen or something completely random, I'm down for that. I want to hear something random, or not necessarily random, just like look, I'm willing to have an open debate about almost anything. Just as long as nothing too crazy that violates the terms and conditions and all that stuff. But yeah. Have a chat to this NPC. I can't tell which chat is which either. Is chat glitched out or is just nobody saying anything? I mean, I think it's pretty obvious that the gods that we invented don't exist. So like anthropomorphic gods, celestial gods, and those types of things. I think it's pretty obvious those gods don't exist. They belong to mythology. Like in terms of what could be out there, yeah, there's agnosticism, because who knows what is actually running the show. Some people somewhere probably claim they know, but I think it's pretty obvious that the gods that we know about don't exist outside of human culture or without relation to humans in some way. Alright, so where are we? So I'm just going to speak to that guy. Oh. There it is. He has nothing to say. Alright, test the audio. And that works. Why do you think that though? To know God is to know nothing about God. That also like that kind of implies that there is some knowledge to be had though. Do you know? But why do you say it? Yeah, like religion is undoubtedly an invention. It can't exist independently of humans. Religion is like obviously it's a societal construct, but it's also a type of societal configuration. Like hierarchically, it's definitely a human invention. None. Why? Why do you need the comparison? Not that I disagree. I also think it should be banned. But why do you need to be able to compare the two? I don't know. I don't know about that, Isaac. I don't know about that. I think. Alright, so this is a kind of optimistic take, right? I think if it's possible to know, then humans will know it at some point in the future. That's been the trend of the past of our existence. I also find it difficult to accept this view that people say, oh, like if God exists or God is incomprehensible or incomprehensible. I think that's nonsense, right? Because, for instance, you don't need to be able to know what omniscience feels like to understand what omniscience is, right? So the same can be said for like almost every single concept that humans have thought of, right? But the moment we're able to think of it and contextualize it and put it into language, then we're capable of comprehending it. So that's why I don't get what people mean when they say that. What, Briar? Well, the free will conversation has nothing to do with God. That's just like a separate subject. It just so happens to be in the same little paragraph bit. But yeah, free will doesn't exist and God doesn't exist. But free will doesn't exist because God doesn't exist. Right? That's like a religious opinion. Nah, they're not, Dylan. Right? They're two different substances, but they are comparable in terms of intoxicants that are on the market. That's true, but they're two different substances. I think it's not possible to know God's morals. What do you mean? That doesn't make sense. Or at least it doesn't make sense to me. I'm not sure. I've not actually looked at it in that way, River. I'm not sure. But I think, put it like this, right? If things are highly disorganized, e.g. chaos, then that means we don't have any say on how things go. But if things are highly ordered, right, then that also means we don't have any say on how things go. So like, where does that put you? Spooky. Like, yeah, if you're gonna grant the concept is right, put it this way, Spooky. If you're someone who thinks, look, the minute you can think of something, that thing exists in some possible world, then yeah, that makes sense. But me being able to like think, okay, there's a purple elephant that brews peanut butter, and it dilates pupils by whispering a high frequency noise. Me being able to conceive of that concept doesn't necessarily mean it exists. So I could put that concept out into the world and say, no, this purple elephant that brews peanut butter and speaks in a high frequency absolutely does exist, and you wouldn't be able to say, oh no, it doesn't exist. That to me, that's the problem that you create there. Whereas historically, we know that humans have produced different gods for different reasons, and we continue to build upon the ideas of gods as time goes on. So it's just like, is it more likely this thing exists, or is it less likely this thing exists based on what we've seen so far? How River Clark? Come up and explain it to me. I'm not like, don't get me wrong. I thought I'd just throw this subject out there. It's not something I've practiced or like studied well to come up with an argument for. It's just an opinion that holds. I'm willing to change my mind on it for sure. What's up, Lou? How you doing? Thank you for the gifts. I appreciate that. So what are you comparing to death though, DC? Yeah, exactly, Spooky. That's the problem, right? I think the best like hypothesis that explains God concepts and God beliefs is basically the building out of what's called hyperactive agency detection device. Simply just humans assigning agency to elemental and celestial things. Then as we develop like cognitively, like some of this also plays into the whole bicameral mind as well. Actually becoming like, or you could say like humans' first awareness of cognition. You know, you could say it like that. But I think that hypothesis on God concepts is more likely than those actual concepts that we think about existing out there. That makes sense. Yeah, so I don't think it would be past human comprehension. That's what I'm saying to you. Right? The moment you can define the thing, it's comprehensible. The moment you can come up with a name and a title and an utterance for it, or even if it's just, well, actually, truth be told, subconsciously, all of these things exist in an abstract space anyway. But the minute you're conscious of it and you actually work through the idea, then it's comprehensible. Yeah, I do think it's possible. I do think that's possible, Spooky. But I think that's the problem with God concepts. Humans can bend them and shape them to whatever they want. Right. So, for instance, So historically, we came up with various different configurations of gods. So, a theological concept like monotheism says there's one all-powerful God, but he's more than likely what's called anthropomorphic. He has human features. But then there are other configurations of gods out there. So you could say like dualism. There's two opposing cosmic forces in the universe battling light and dark, right? Good and bad. Right? And then there's like pantheism, which is more of a philosophical view. It's like everything encompassing is God itself. To say all of those things are or are not a fact is it's just a statement of beliefs. But to be able to prove any of those things would basically be a matter for empiricism, and no one's done that. Right? What's up, G? Hello?
Yeah, just want to say W build, bro.
Hey,
I
appreciate
haven't
it.
played Elden Ring in ages. I miss this game so much.
Play it then, bro.
Yeah. But are you guys like only having like a religious argument, or
No.
is there anything else you were talking about?
The topic is open. I want to hear any hot takes. I'm willing to talk about any conversation that you want to talk about. Anything that's on the screen
You guys,
or
you
otherwise.
guys talk about any Israel Palestine stuff?
Well, no, I don't actually, right? But I'd be willing to have a conversation about it if you want. Why not? Just as long as like we're like, kind of cognizant of the parameters that we can, you know.
Oh, what do you mean when you say cognizant of the thing?
So like certain types of language would look. To be honest, I actually don't care, but it's just in concern for the platform and the rules. When you start talking about things like G-side, etc., it's they're finicky about their language rules on
I know, I
TikTok.
get what you mean.
So that's what I mean.
I'm all for it. The only reason I get a bit finicky, like you're saying, when somebody brings this up is because I've been on a lot of these lives where they just use it as an excuse to kick you out. Like, you get what I mean? And I just like,
No, I won't kick you out as long as you're not like again blatantly violating policy. We can disagree
yeah.
or agree. Like, it makes no difference to me. So what points do you want to raise around it?
It just like I don't know. It kind of baffles me when you see online discourse in places like this, and there's like genuine sort of like I don't know, like reality denying, like saying there is no G side, saying there this is not happening. In fact, and I'm just like it just blows your mind to be honest, seeing all this happening.
Yeah, I can understand that. Like, we also got to remember everyone is right. So something I was like kind of looking into, like halfway studying recently, is how historically, or at least in the 21st century, most of our experiences are experienced through as spectators. So they're not first-hand experiences. So when we start thinking about, for instance, like big events like 9/11, the death of famous people, you know, like all these things that we experience, like we actually have memories of the thing happening, we experience them as spectators via media. So now in the space where we live today, media has, put it this way, there is there are algorithms, put it this way, and how algorithms operate is people get what they gravitate towards, they'll get more of it. so people are incentivized to push out political ideas or views on a specific subject that benefit a certain group of people. So when you think about that, how we experience reality through this kind of spectator sport thing, if it's not first-hand experience, it makes sense that there are people out there that say, no, what you objectively know to be a fact isn't true because this is my version of it. Do you know?
But isn't that to belittle things that are objective facts?
Well, what do you mean by that? Because we could, right? I'll put it to you like this: to say something is an objective fact is strange in itself. But I'm not saying for the sake of the concept, the conversation. What do you mean by that?
Like, I don't know. I think I know what you're getting at, and I think I used to be a big enjoyer of this sort of back and forth when I was a bit younger. But I feel like it only ends up hurting the material conditions of real life people. Like, you get what I mean? Like, once we distract away the topic from talking about, okay, how do we help people who are experiencing this G-side, and we talk about, okay, what is the objective truth of history and how is it being reported and all of this that we talk about. I do think that's an interesting conversation. I really do. I just mean I've sort of gravitated away from it as I get older and as I care a bit more about the material conditions of people,
But you also,
rather than
what you're saying is granted, and it's positive, right? But you also got to realize your ability to like kind of lean on that kind of, I don't know if it's exactly that, but that kind of Marxist analysis is in itself another type of escape from confronting reality directly. Because again, the knowledge you have around the situation, unless you're actually on the ground, is still from a spectator's point of view. Right, so it's like this, right? For instance, imagine like a bunch of us were sitting around and we was in like a think tank or something like that, and we're discussing how we solve world hunger or homelessness or whatever it is where we are, okay? And everyone's putting forward their ideas, their data, their statistics on what's actually happening within those groups. And historically, there always have been this, where we're talking about revolutions, like just all kinds of things. There will always be a group of people that stand up and say, all right, forget all the talking, but what are we going to do though? Right?
I get what you mean. I
And
feel like
that
this is a popular.
that forget all the talking, but what are we going to do is actually a way of moving away from doing the work.
I agree. I agree
It's
with
an
what you're
escape.
saying. Yeah, I agree with what you're saying, and I feel like it's a very popular sort of quote unquote criticism that people have against socialism, where it's like, oh, all you guys do is talk. There is no actual work being done, and I can agree that a lot of people who are very left leaning can be quite idealistic. They can be like
Yeah.
all or nothing. They can be all of this, and I think that is ultimately harmful. This is why I'm against what they call a revolution versus reform sort of thing. I don't think they're opposing things. I think that revolution happens through constant reform. Like if you get what I mean.
In a
I
way,
just
yeah.
mean that. I just mean nobody. I think anybody who says, "Oh, forget all the
Oops.
talking. What are we actually gonna do?" is distracting. Ultimately,
But
there's a way around it.
that
There's
is
a way around the.
but that
There's
is
a way around the
also
problem.
technically the stance you took in the like during the conversation.
No, but I said like because like you're saying, you and me are not on the ground. We can't physically do anything. I mean, we can donate. I think
No,
that
yeah,
there's physical things
I don't think we can't do
we
anything
can do.
physically. We could definitely, but
We
what?
can we
Yeah,
can we can do it. But
sure.
like I'm just saying, there's two sides of this. We need to do the actual work of helping people, and we need to talk about what's the most effective way about like how can I say, uh, not advertising, but like raising
Just
awareness.
awareness, yeah, consciousness
Yeah,
raising, yeah.
yeah, exactly.
I'm in agreement with you there, but now this is where it gets interesting for me, right?
Mm.
Don't take this the wrong way, but you
Okay.
also need to recognize this very like potent or like serious question: why should anyone care, right? And then work backwards from there. Why should a stranger care about this particular issue?
Well, I'm gonna say something a bit nerdy. If I'm being honest, I don't know if this is a safe space to quote Spider-Man here,
Yeah,
but
sure.
I believe that when you help someone, you help everyone. I believe that we raise our communities through protecting our most marginalized, and I feel like if you don't stop oppression in all of its forms, it will eventually come for you. Like
Yeah,
there's this really great
I agree.
poem
Yes,
by an
yeah, I know.
American poet. I forget his name, called The Hangman. And the point of it is that if you don't stand up to oppression, to the most marginalized people in your community, it will first happen to this person, first happen to that
And then when
person.
it's you, there'll be nobody.
There'll be nobody left. Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
I'm well aware of that, and that's like one of the things I think about quite often as well. But it doesn't change the point, right? For instance, so like if you were to look at it more of on a sociological level, right, you know that just individuals exist with various different intersecting issues like your race, your gender, your class,
Yeah.
your abilities or disabilities, all these things, right? Why should someone say, right, now, this is my personal reality. I'm a spectator to what's happening in that region of the world, but this is what's happening on the ground where I am in my reality. Why should I value this issue, solving this issue, over solving these current issues? That's
I'm not even
that's what,
saying
what
I'm
you
not
need
even
to be
saying
clear on.
international affairs should be your main thing. I think that you should be always focusing on uplifting your community. I'm not even saying, but the reason, like, if you want to even subdivide it more on an individual basis, I think there is real, like, material benefit to you helping the people around you. I think that uplifting your community will almost always benefit you, like, even on
In a
a
sense,
individual level.
but here's where it gets techie, right? So if you was to flip the position to a pro-Zionist position, that is them essentially saying the same thing.
Well, like I don't think so, because like I mean I don't know, like, but a Zionist perspective cannot function without explicitly or internally not recognizing the humanity of other people. Like, you must belittle the humanity of another person, claim that they have no rights to the land they live in, they have no rights to their lives for you, for that ideology to function.
Yeah, to an extent, right? At least Zionism in the form that we see it currently
Yeah,
today,
exactly.
right?
In the form that it's functioning.
Yeah,
You get what I mean?
yeah, that's absolutely an element of it, but the argument remains the same, right? So there's like Jewish theologians and like philosophers who emerge out of what's called Holocaust theology, right? Post the war. And one of the biggest things that was looked at during this study, I think, well, the guy who did the study is it's called Unholy Trinity. I'll get the book. I'll tell you in a minute, anyways, right? But the base of it is like there's two different parties that are arguing about what Judaism was going to become after the Holocaust, and one of them identifies the fact that Holocaust allowed for what's called moral licensing. So because a lot of Jewish people experienced the persecution that they did, they moved with that persecution as a moral license to therefore say it's not that we're gonna attack this group of people and like do bad things to them. What we're doing is designed to protect Jewry at large.
Yeah.
So it's like them saying we're looking out for our community, and by looking out for our community, we're helping X, Y, Z. So it's like it's an inversion of the same argument, but just at a different extreme.
Of the same argument I was making.
Yeah.
But it's not the same one, because again, you are like the argument you were describing.
Mm.
Again, it only benefits your community at the cost of another.
Yeah, to an extent, but from all right. So again, playing devil's advocate, not that I necessarily support this view. It's to them. This is like an upfront cost that we pay for the long term payoff, right? And it's obviously human life should be valued way more than that, right? There's no argument there. But the reality is, from a political or long term strategic point of view, people who believe in Zionism believe they're absolutely doing the right thing, right? Which is,
I think
you know,
means they're going.
which is problematic, but it's also what you have to be able to define, right? How is it not the right thing in terms of their goals and outcomes?
Well, I think the way Zionism sort of justifies itself is the same way that the American colonists justified it for themselves. They called it manifest destiny. Zionism calls it, the Zionists just call it the Zionist project. And it's this idea that we as a community of, for them it was simply white people. For Zionism, for Zion it is Zionist. They try to co-opt it into all of Jewishness, which is an anti-Semitic thing. But like it will say it's just Zionism. we must continue. We must quote unquote like free this land. We must civilize it, even, or if not for the like for the betterment of these people, for our own long term benefit. And this is what we see now. Like what we see is the United States of America, which is a country that is built off of the slaughter of these people. Like
Yeah.
in a couple in 50 I like in 50 or 100 years, if nothing is done about the genocide that is happening now in Gaza, you're going to have people in Israel say, "Oh, this is stolen land. We live off of the back." Exactly what people say in America now. It's just that we had a chance to do something about it and we didn't, just like we have been before.
That's true. That is a very good point, right? But again, like so what you're saying is absolutely correct. So let me just acknowledge that first. What you're saying is absolutely correct. But the reality of how people's brains function, it would immediately default into a whataboutism, because one will turn around and say, okay, so given the history of transatlantic slavery by Europe, right?
Yeah.
Where was the call from the Arab world or the Asian world in our defense? Now, prior to, as like black people from the diaspora, then one could say, all right, let's go back a step further, right? Pre-transatlantic slavery, there was Arab slavery, right, and colonization of Africa. Where was the call to defense and arms or help then, right? So it kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier on about the same intersectional reality of people's lives today, and the spectator and experiencing these things as spectators and not the actual first person experiencer of the thing. Okay.
I don't know if you did this like on purpose or not, or if you're just playing devil's advocate, but this is kind of exactly what they do. Like whenever I bring up any point criticizing, the genocide, the genocide that's happening in Gaza, they always do about what aboutism. Well, you're Arab, and Arabs did this, and Arabs did that, and I don't. I feel like that is the biggest sort of red flag for a weak argument, because what you're doing is quite literally pushing away what we're talking about and saying, oh well,
Yeah.
and I think it's fundamentally racist as well, because you think, oh,
This
your
is true.
race or whatever race it is did something bad in the past, and I'm like, okay, I condemn that, but there is nothing we can do about the past.
No, but see, that's the mistake you make, right? Because although what you're saying ideologically is right, we should do something to help people who are suffering. You can't, right? You can't act from an ahistorical place. Okay.
No. I can say historically that was a horrible thing.
No,
And
but
we
to
shouldn't.
you're right. That's what I'm trying to explain to you. You're right in terms of the event, which is what's happening in the Middle East, right? And actually has been happening almost a century, right, if not more at this point. But you can't look at the rest of the world, right, and say, actually, I need you to postpone the past in order to help me with this now. Because then what people find is, right, we say we do postpone the past. Like typically black people find themselves on the end of basically being called to arms to help people who don't help them. Right? And
That's a good point.
you don't have to take that in an offensive way or like a spiteful way, but it's just a reality
No.
we've experienced, right? Because when we actually start to look at, all right, the support for Palestinians is still actually met with anti-blackness, right? Why
Are
are
you saying there's racism within pro-Palestinian movements?
well, very likely. I don't know for certain, but
Yeah.
it's very
No,
likely
I
the
can,
case,
I can agree
right?
with that, and I can
But
criticize.
it goes
that
beyond
there's-
race. It will go to class as well. It would go to gender. It would go
Yeah.
to like homophobia. All these various different other things that dehumanize people as well.
Yeah. No. I agree with your analysis that we live in a very intersectional. Like you as a person, you live and experience the world around you in a very intersectional manner. I agree with all of that, and I think there is an important thing to point out when you say, "Oh, we need to postpone these other things because of things happening now." I can see why someone would get upset, and I see this even within Arab movements. Like I have Syrian friends who tell me, "Oh, like who have told me point blank a couple of years ago, I don't care about the Palestinian movements. Why is no one supporting the Syrian movement or the Freedom for Syria as much as they're supporting Palestine?" So I can see even within Arab communities there is this rising stake. But I guess
It's valid.
my stand,
It's
and I agree.
valid.
Those feelings are. I don't think the argument is valid, if I'm being honest. But I think the feelings are valid, and we need to work through them because we're human beings and we're very emotional creatures. I just mean,
Yeah, correct.
why can't we move in unison? Why can't I, as a person,
Because of that,
both?
right? Because of the past, because of history,
Yeah, yeah.
and
But
because
what I
of
mean is,
our emotions, obviously too, right?
yeah, no, of course, and I just mean like, why can't I, as a person who's living in America or living in the UK, why can't like I be both pro, the abolishment of systematic racism, and also be pro Palestine and pro stopping the Zionist agenda? I feel like when people
You
say, "Oh, you're
can.
giving a lot of attention to this," it's like it's a straw man, because it's saying as if I take away from the importance of this other cause.
Yeah, but that's right. So that's an unintended consequence, right? You know, there's like in economics, there's a view called opportunity cost. So the cost of
Yeah,
me playing this game right now is at the expense of me doing something else.
yeah,
So, and there's also like to not like just bombard you with platitude. There's also like a view of where attention goes, energy flows. So we
yeah,
also know from like a world, or let's say a geopolitics point of view, right, that
mm,
narratives are shaped and swayed for particular reasons. What's
yeah,
happening in the Middle East or the Levant has been happening for a long time. Right? It didn't just start the last 2 years ago. These
yeah,
like even when the civil rights movement was happening all the way up until like the Black Power movement, there are various different sections or factions of people involved in those fights for rights who were also adamant and vocal supporters of what was happening in the Middle East too, right?
yeah.
So it's not like it just happened the other day. But what you also have to realize with what I'm trying to explain to you with like the allocation of energy, resources, and like mind power, an incident like what happens in Gaza can also be co-opted by various other people which would be considered bad actors as an actual distraction from things that you can actively do something about, because it
No,
will
no,
because being
I agree with that.
bombarded with all of these problems you can't solve actually psychologically puts you in a state of like not only fear, but it's just like like a helplessness, right? You're overloaded with problems that you can't actually actively affect. So this stops you from looking at problems which you can actually affect. So things like the Palestinian issue can be politically used as one of those issues also. So
No, no, I
that's why
agree.
a lot
Like,
of people will be like, hey, what about Sudan, right? The energy
yeah,
that's put there is averted from here, or like, what about this local issue that's happening there, so
no,
forth,
no.
so on and so forth, kind of thing.
I fully agree, and it's even to a matter of extent. Like, you see a lot of this rhetoric, like with people like Nick Fuentes or Tucker Carlson online, who genuinely use it to fuel disgusting anti-Semitic rhetoric. Do you get what I mean?
There's that too, yeah. There's that
There's
too,
that.
yeah.
But my question is, like, and I'm asking this in good faith. I mean, what if we become hyper focused on the allocation of resources? Two things happen. First of all, we end up never actually doing anything because we're constantly worried about the opportunity cost of both our time and our resources and our attention. And also, the second thing, I think it inevitably like will lead to arguments about who is having a rougher time. You get what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
that whataboutism you can't really put on the back burner, because it's the pathos of any argument. You have to consider it, and it's the easiest thing that people gravitate towards in the first
yeah,
place.
exactly. Like, this is what I mean. It's always the easiest thing that people gravitate towards, and I feel like it is genuinely co-opted as a distraction. Like, do you get what I mean? Like, I think that
This
we
this
should
is
create
true,
this. Okay, go on.
but you also got to realize what is it that brings you as a bruv
Mm.
to this particular issue, if not the same thing.
Yeah, no, I don't
You
even
know?
mind that. Like, if I see a person from a different race, let's say they're white, let's say they're black, and they tell me point blank, I don't care about this issue. I want to pursue the civil right movements of something that concerns me and my heritage. I will be completely fine with that. All I just want to know is that there is a, like, how do I say it? Like, there is a acknowledgement of the atrocities that are happening to these people. I am the first person to admit that my concern for the Palestinian issue comes from my heritage and comes from my proximity and comes from my culture, and
Because it's
it
something
comes.
that affects you more.
What do you mean? No, well, it just, like, how do I say this? I'm from the Middle East. The people who I see dying look like me. Like I see a brother in that. I see, and I'll be the first person to admit that that is a primary reason
There you
as to
go.
why. Yeah, exactly.
There you
This
go.
is why. This is why I will say that all I'm asking for people, is an acknowledgement of the atrocities that are happening. Do you
Hey,
get what I mean?
right. So that's a valid point, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. But the critique would be, are you, right? One is, why are you asking for validation of the experience, and two, are you asking it of the right people?
Okay, answer to the first one,
Yeah.
because we 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 live in a very media controlled world. Like, if you are not willing to, like, we have constructed a world, and I think this is like a progressive thing, and a good thing. We constructed a world where your voice and what you say matters. So if you are not willing to speak out in the simplest of ways, I think that that does do harm. Like, do you get what I mean? Like,
Not
how I'm a
necessarily.
big supporter. I'm a big supporter of the trans rights movement. Right? Am I going to rallies every chance I get? No. Am I wearing he/him badges everywhere I go? No. Do I put it in my bio? No. But I will verbally and adamantly support the cause when I am given the opportunity to do so, because
No, but
people need to
what?
know.
No, what you have to be honest about is when it's, you will support the cause when it's beneficial or when it's convenient. That's a
No,
reality that sounds cruel, but it's true.
listen.
You don't allocate your time and your resources to these other things. You allocate it to what interests you. So when
What?
it's
How?
convenient to use energy, this is like one of the biggest. Right, so obviously I'm not. Again, this is more devil's advocate, but one of the biggest critiques from a right side of things is the view of identity politics, virtue signaling, and this type of this like double bind, where no, I need you to denounce this thing, otherwise you are this thing.
I agree with what you're saying,
That
but I
that
don't.
is a that's a that in itself is a dangerous precedent, right? You don't actually want to exist in that way, because at any moment someone could pull your card about something that you don't openly acknowledge.
No, no, no. I'm.
You know, and it's
Well,
like,
if
oh,
you're
now
not.
now you are part of the problem because you don't openly acknowledge this niche thing.
Well, no. I mean, like, two responses here. One, I don't see how supporting the continuous gaining of human rights by the trans community benefits me. If anything, it de-benefits me, because I come from a culture and an environment that is deeply transphobic. So like, talking about it and raising awareness about it harms me, if anything. And second of all, if I am giving you, like, I don't think saying, oh well, like you don't support this, so then you're a bad person, is that valid of a, like, critique? Because you need to be consistent with your morality and with your standards, so that whatever issue
That's
that faces you,
you
whatever.
hope, but not
Yeah,
necessarily.
yeah. But what do you think
Ideally,
of the
but
first
not
point?
necessarily. Okay.
Yeah, well, but what do you think of the first point?
Well, I don't think you finished landing it. All right, to be honest with you.
No, I
So,
mean, talking about, not the first. I meant talking about how supporting the trans doesn't
well,
help me beneficially or materially.
it will if it would if you approach it in the right way, because you have to understand, like, I had a conversation with Debs the other night, and she made the argument that trans women aren't women, right? But my critique of it was from a structuralist point of view, saying actually all of these various systems to be able to identify that person is about politics, is about power, and the power for self-definition is about, like, the undoing of that. Okay.
Yeah.
So in a sense, yes, you rallying on behalf of trans rights would actually help you in terms of long-term
Well, yeah,
politics
this is
play.
it. It
But
comes back.
but hey, like,
Okay, go on.
the issues that concern you, right? Which is a reality.
No, 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 and again, this is what I mean. Like, I am in no way saying that you need to leave like, you need to leave whatever it is you're supporting and support this specific cause. I understand that human beings are very communal. We put importance on the people that are even close to our proximity. Like, do you get what I mean? I'm not saying that you need to let go of your heritage. You need to let go of your issues that concern you the most. It's natural for the issues that concern you the most to be your biggest thing. But just like how I can see something that is very much on the periphery, something periphery to my personal experience, something like trans rights, and I can say, yes, I openly and vehemently support that, while focusing my energy and my time on, raising awareness to the Palestinian people. I think that there isn't anything wrong with that, because you're only a human being at the end of the day, and you can only ever use your time in a limited way.
This is true, and I understand what you're trying to say, but at the same time, it's the type of politic that we're discussing here. It is looking for a consistency in people's morality, kind of like what you left off with. And the reality is, like, one of my opinions about leftism, or at least how it is used online, it is primarily designed around weaponizing morality. It's very easy to weaponize morality through rhetoric, specifically if the people you're talking to don't actually understand morality. So that it becomes, I'm not critiquing this thing, I'm critiquing you, right? And that's where that emotional type of bind to an issue develops, whether you're talking about trans rights, immigration, abortion, whatever it is, right? People move beyond the issue and the critique of the issue, and they attach it to their identity, because people want to be able to hold you. Part of the conversation about not having free will is that people need a way to hold people morally accountable, but in like this like postmodern individualistic world we live in, morality of the past doesn't even exist that way anymore anyway. It's whatever you abide by.
Yeah, no, I think if you want to take like a etymological take on it, I think morality has always existed on a sort of community-based level. It's sort of what you and the people around you define to be moral, if you get what I mean. And I honestly think, to a certain degree, this is why this conversation ends up like sort of not getting anywhere, because it's such a deeply subjective thing. I just like
It would
I
have to
think
be.
this is what I mean when I say you have to be consistent. Is your empathy consistent? Can you empathize that the oppressed here are the people that need helping? I'm not saying you can't be consistent with your time, because you're a human being, you're a limited thing, and it's totally normal for you to devote the majority of your time to your community or the issues that are close to you as a person. All I'm asking for is the consistency in your empathy.
Which is fair, right, and understandable. But you also got to understand, right? It's kind of like that point I was pointing to earlier on. Are you asking it from the right people? It's not like, yes, like public awareness helps like put political pressure on an issue to get sorted out, but actually looking for that empathy from the wrong people turns into a big like tail chasing thing, right? You're not
I
solving
agree.
anything in that kind of
I
way.
agree. This is why.
And to demand empathy from someone isn't actually allowing for the true expression of empathy. It's that
No,
same
no, I don't think
it's that
you
same
should.
like
No,
backed into a corner via weaponizing morality. It's like, if
no,
you're
I
a good
agree.
person, being a good person equals this. If this isn't expressed, therefore you're not a good person. That's what you back people into,
Okay,
you know.
I agree with the first point you're saying, but for the second point, I'm gonna have to slightly sort of disagree. Again, it comes back to what you understand of what a good person is. I think the strongest sort of, or the most characteristic thing that human beings have is their morality. If you are not willing to at least give, no, sorry, their empathy. If you're not willing to at least give your empathy to to people who have experienced similar things to you, because at the end of the day, we're all human beings, and we all like the fear and the pain of oppression is experienced by almost every community ever. And I feel like to not be able to recognize that and to say I am opposed to that fear, I am opposed to that pain,
Well,
I think
to ex-
in my eyes at least,
sorry, yeah.
makes you a less moral person.
Right, so obviously moral is going to be a subjective judgment, but
Yeah.
in terms of empathy, it's not something you can quantify in that way. It's what I'm trying to explain to you. Like, you're looking for a specific action, a specific emotion expressed, a specific phrase said, right? But you're not accounting for the view, right? So on a biological level, the only thing that accounts for empathy is mirror neurons, right? It's
Yeah.
us being able to see other animals or other things in pain and knowing they have a nervous system, they have a brain of some
Yeah.
sort, right? Biologically, we're supposed to all have that. But how that is expressed in our personalities, in our actions, in our words is different. person to
Yeah.
person. So to
Yeah.
expect a kind of consistent expression of empathy is actually it's a pretense. It's for show. Because then anyone, like, someone could be like the most evil person in the world to be like, yes, I did just murder 2,000 people, but you know what? They've got me on the news channel tonight, so I'm gonna express deep and sincere, not necessarily remorse, but I'm gonna denounce
No,
this
no.
thing that they want me to denounce, right?
I agree.
As a
I agree
show
with
of
you
my
that
empathy. But the
I
reality is,
agree with
when
you
the
that
camera
a
goes
lot of
off,
it.
I'm gonna go murder 200,000 more people, right?
I agree with
If you
you
want
that a lot of
empathy
it
to
can
be
be
expressed
performative.
like that, then it puts you in a bind, right? Because you won't know where people really lie.
No, no,
You
no.
know?
I agree with you that a lot of it can be performative, but at the same time, you can't have someone like come to you and say, "I don't care about this issue," and or like who shows actions of belittling it, and then we say, "Oh, but you don't know how they're expressing their empathy." Like at the end of the day, we as a people, like as a society, have we develop languages, we develop ways to convey our emotions. So if you don't use that to show me that, yes, not even I don't even expect people to care. Like I don't even
But there is
I'm
though.
not gonna expect someone to fundamentally care about the issue. But you need to be able to recognize like the reality of what's going on and convey that to me that you do understand.
Why
So
though?
that's all.
This is what you're failing to realize. Like, not to get like too like off the track, right? But it's one. It has a lot to do with your personal ego. Like, why you, not necessarily you personally, but why do you feel you're entitled to someone's expression, like, and
No, no,
someone's
no. I'm
empathy
not
in that
saying.
way?
No, no, no. I'm not saying I'm entitled to
Might
it.
not be the
I'm
best
saying
vocabulary, but yeah.
if we're going to engage in a conversation about this, then I am going to need you to do that so that I know what your stance on it is. Like, do you get what I mean?
Ah,
Like
but
that's that.
but you could take
I don't need every person ever to
a
say,
principled stance about having to express it emotionally.
"What do you mean express your emotion?"
So, for instance, right, if you're ideologically opposed to human trafficking, right,
Okay.
and someone comes to you and says, "There's this specific type of human trafficking that's happening in a work scenario somewhere in the world," right? That
Yeah.
person may not need to like break down the emotionality of how that makes them feel,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. Yeah.
but they are
100%.
already principally against that. So
Yeah.
any kind of expression of that would only just be to like reconcile the person who's making or raising the complaint, not necessarily addressing the issue itself. You know, like, and you also got to think of things like Asperger's and neurodivergence, how people express their thoughts emotionally or verbally is different.
Could you give me an example of how someone who supports a cause can express their support for it other than saying, "I support this," or aiding it physically? Like how
I,
could someone else?
well, yeah, I could give you an example. Maybe it's not the greatest analogy on the fly, right? But for instance, like, so during the inception of the Black Panther Party, right?
Mm,
It initially, the overground was supposed to be set up just for people who were scholarly, right? And they were the front
okay.
facing people in the community, and they would do the breakfast programs, the standing on the corners, ushering people basically. And there was another branch of the Black Panther Party who was supposed to operate covertly, and they were the people who would do the more dirty part of the jobs, right? So the
Mm,
overt expression, well, not I say dirty, but like within a parameter, but the overt expression from the people who are the faces of it, like your Huey Newtons, etc.
mm.
Those principal stances are also the same principal stances of the people doing the covert activities.
Yeah.
So the people who handle the covert activities never have to come out and explicitly say, "I identify with this group and I believe what they
Yeah.
believe
No,
and
no,
I
no.
do." No, they handle it in their way. Right? Now, I'm not saying
Through
that
action.
accounts for everybody,
Mm.
but if you expect everyone like to publicly facing show you their political allegiances, you'd be wrong, or their empathy as you described it, you'd be wrong, right? Like in a very Machiavellian way, how does that benefit them? That benefits you, you know?
No, listen, 100% I agree. But I feel like, so are you saying you shouldn't sort of judge someone by them not supporting this cause because they could be covertly aiding it?
No, I'm not saying that that's what you should automatically default to. Oh, look, they don't support this cause, so therefore they're covertly. I'm not saying that as a matter of fact, but it's a potential. So if you think about it from that point of view, you don't expect from others what you expect from yourself. This person
Mhm.
deals with things this way, that person deals with things that way. But if your primary goal is just to make sure people are informed, then you should be satisfied with people being informed, not necessarily expressing the information that they've taken on in another kind of platitude way, right?
No,
Sheep's
I think
sheep's don't throw up grass to show the shepherds, right? What they do is they produce wool, right? It's a saying from philosophy. So good,
okay.
well understood philosophy. They don't puke it up to show the shepherds. Look how much grass we've ate. No, we just produce really good wool.
Yeah,
Right?
if like, how do I say this? If you feel uncomfortable expressing your support in public, I totally agree, understand that. But then I'm seeing the wool that you're producing, then I have no problem with that. And I don't even like, the thing is, I don't even have a problem with you not doing anything. I'm not like, all I'm saying is, me as a person, I would feel like, let's say, no, I don't want to say uncomfortable, because I wouldn't feel uncomfortable. I would just feel uneasy about a person who is not even willing to say, yes, I recognize the systemic oppression of these people.
And that's absolutely understandable. And there's nothing actually wrong with that because that is the essence of in group out group in the first place. We think
Exactly.
this, they think that, and
No, no, no,
that's
exactly.
valid.
Like, that's what I'm getting, and this is what I mean when I say, the issues I fundamentally care about don't need to be the issues you care about, but we need to stand together against the collective oppression of all peoples. And this is what I mean when I say communities get stronger by uplifting each other. And I feel like I feel like I see this happen a lot, whenever you talk to people in Arab countries, where they care so much, naturally care so much about the Palestinian issue, but are willing to be homophobic, are willing to be racist even. And I just like, and the thing I always say is, you are ultimately belittling your own cause by not uplifting other communities, because then how could you expect that of them?
This is true, right? But you also got to understand, just like them, me and you are held in the same regard in terms of the vocabulary, the language that we're using right now, the platforms that we're on right now. We are all operating within other people's epistemic framing anyway, right?
Hmm.
And within those various different epistemic framings, there's an inherent bias, and sometimes that bias is in your favor, and sometimes that bias isn't. So in the Arab world, there are inherent properties of their systems, their beliefs, and their politics that put them at an advantage and other people at a disadvantage. In
Yeah.
our Western society, the same thing. Okay, so that expression, although some people actively do it with hatred, with like bad intent, okay, those people are probably the loud minority. But the majority of people who express anti-blackness, express homophobia, express all these other views, it's because it's baked into their epistemic system, right? How they understand the world, how knowledge is translated to them, what is authority, what is official, what is
Yeah,
legitimate
no, no, no,
knowledge. That's
I
all
agree.
baked into their world. So
And
to
and
get
I
them
think
to
we can,
outside of that is very difficult.
it is, and I can think we can agree that we can call that socialization.
Yeah, I guess that's not a bad way to
Yeah,
put it.
but I think that socialization can be overcome. And like, I know a lot of people who share my opinions. I know that breaking through your socialization is possible and it can be done. And I feel like we should work towards that.
Well, yeah, in where there's shared interest, where there's proximity, yeah, but
No,
don't
even
you
without
can't
shared
expect the whole
interest.
world to be uniformed, not on an idea or even geographically. It's where you do what you can where you can kind of thing. I know it sounds kind of weak, but it's real.
No, no, no. I agree that you do what you can where you can. And this is why I opened this by saying that I think that people should, the like, how do I say this? The essence or the majority of the work should be to their own immediate communities. If you get what I mean. Just like I expect people from a community in Africa to work solely to uplift their community and raise their living standards, just like I expect other people from different countries, because inherently we, like I don't think we can ever get rid of tribalism. I think that we are inherently communal animals, and we are the most interested in the communities that we exist in and that we live in.
Well, yes,
But I think
I
that
agree.
in what little ways that you can, you should at least be willing to help people in other who are facing oppression in other communities. Just like a lot of people are, just like I am, because that like one again because like I talked to, I think that communities lift each other by protecting their most marginalized, and because it's characteristic of who we are, the sense
Some
of empathy.
sometimes remember the Zionist example I gave you. For them, that is what they think they're doing. But but that aside, right? The other problem is what you're saying is ideal, right? It's idealistic, in fact, and it would be nice to see that played out in a utopia. But to the point I was raising earlier on, how we experience these various issues outside of our immediate reality is from a spectator's point of view. Therefore, there's a clear, well, for some people there isn't a clear line between reality and what they experience, reality and what they perceive, right? But your view of tribalism and in-group, out-group politic, and then still thinking people should have a view to help people outside of their immediate reality, ignores the fact that all of this extra information about the outside world, outside of their bubble, is obtained from that same spectator's point of view. And how they get that information is tinted or biased by who gives them that information. Right? So what you're
No,
saying
I agree.
is a good idea, but in practice, it's hard. It's very difficult.
I think I think it is difficult, but I do not think it's unrealistic or unobtainable, in my opinion. Because what I'm asking for here, I feel like, is sort of a natural human conclusion. Like think of, you're in a situation where your brother is facing immediate danger, and a random homeless person is facing immediate danger. Who would you help? Naturally, obviously, you would help your brother. Do you get what I mean?
Well,
No one can say you're a
it
bad
depends.
person
It
for
depends
doing
on proximity, doesn't it? Right?
What do you mean it depends on person?
Well, say I get word of something bad happening to a sibling, and they're like 60, 20 miles away. But I actually open my front door and see there's a fire and there's a child like crawling out of it. Am I more obligated to run past the child to help my brother, or deal with the child that's in front of me?
No. In my example, these two people were in front of you.
Wait.
These two people are in the same position.
That's
You get what I mean?
yeah, it's kind of shifting the goalpost. But like I said, proximity matters, context matters. Like ideally, right? Well, let's not even ideally. This is like very like patriarchal to say this anyway. Your family member or your brother holds more value than a stranger. But if you actually like principally true to the value of human life across the board, your brother's life is worth the same as the child's life, as the same as the homeless man's life, etc. Right? Which is kind of what you're arguing for in this argument.
No,
But-
I'm not. This, I think that would be too ideal of a thing to place on the normal person. I think that it's totally acceptable for a normal person to value the life of their brother more than a stranger that they don't know.
Yeah, I can see that point of view, but like that would
Do you
that would
agree?
slightly undermine your argument that people should care about Palestine if that's the view you truly believe in.
Yeah, exactly. But all I'm saying, this is kind of where I'm getting at. I do not mind you prioritizing the health and the betterment of your brother's life, 100%. But what I don't agree with is that you should disable and invalidate other people for the continuous benefit solely of your brother. That is what I mean. I do not mind you prioritizing the well-being of your brother, but it shouldn't come at the cost of other people.
And I agree with you there. Like, I have no qualms with that. But it's very difficult to boil that, which would be very much like an interpersonal argument, down into a geopolitical view of the world.
No. Obviously, it would be difficult, and I do think that the cases we talk about are extreme cases. Like we can't pretend like what's happening in Gaza or what's happening in Sudan is a normal geopolitical thing. It is an extreme case of the oppression and systemic genocide
No.
of a people. So like.
Well, on the world stage, it's not even an extreme. It's a norm historically. If you trend wise, decimation of entire populations has been happening since like the hominidae family. Now, this isn't a justification of it, but that like that illness, that human kind of wrongdoing, is kind of baked into what humanity, this version of humanity, actually is.
I feel like that's just like we're getting at essentialism now. We're just saying that we've always been like this, and we should just stand aside when people suffer.
No, I don't think we should stand aside, but I think we should also acknowledge that this is a part of how our world is functioning currently. Right? I don't think
Yeah,
we should stand aside if we can help it.
but we've come a long way as a species towards giving the most marginalized people in our societies more rights. So like I think we should continue with doing that and make like progress even further.
Yes, in some ways I agree, but like I'm
In what ways?
I'm
In
not
what ways do you
I'm not
disagree?
like, so sometimes I'm very contrarian. This is a part of my personality, but I also think about troubleshooting. What is the next step, right? Then what? That's what I kind of think about, because yes, like historically, right. So something. This is what I kind of was pointing out earlier on about trying to operate from an ahistorical place in the first place, like being able to like wipe the slate clean and forget about the past. It's not actually possible because it's baked into everything.
No, I
But
agree that it's not possible.
right, so the fact that we had to establish something like human rights in the first place is very telling of the world, or just human nature. Okay, and now look at our current political climate. Right, so an argument could be made how historical leftism pushed for human rights, civil rights, etc. Those same things, like those parameters that they've established or standards they've established, have now been captured by the other side and are being pushed in the extremity towards the other direction. Now one can say, I have the right to say the N word and offend you, right? And I have the right to stand here protected by that. Right? So
I
it gets
I
it
think
gets
I
murky.
understand. I think I understand what you're saying. You're saying that the sort of fight that people who are historically been on the apparent left have fought to gain certain rights are now co-opted by the people on the right
Yeah,
to like I see this a lot when
to
when like
dehumanize,
you see
to do
someone
the
on
very
Fox
same
News
thing.
saying like, oh, we don't want these immigrants coming into our country, they don't hold our values, whereas these values are like women's suffrage, equal rights to LGBTQ people, like things that they themselves would not have fought for but now take for granted and use to belittle other people. I completely agree with that observation, but what's the point that you're making off of, like, are you saying that, like, what is the point you're making
So
off of this?
that was just on the point of you saying kind of pushing for more rights. Right now, I'm not against pushing for more rights. Don't misunderstand what I'm saying. But the context of why I said it was thinking about the potential troubleshooting of the future. That's the only reason why I raised that
I
point.
mean, I think, but like, think about building a dam or building a fire station, like things that will help people. Could
Yeah.
there someone eventually come to co-opt these and say, oh, we are an inherently better people because we built a dam or we built a fire station or we built ways of helping people? Yes, but that shouldn't be a reason to not build these facilities.
No, you're right, but what you have to think about when you're building the dam is to make it fail proof in its design, right? So whilst building the dam, you have to consider actually someone might come along and stop this, make this dam become privatized and divert the water somewhere else. You have to think about that within the design in this analogy of policy, right? So,
No,
for instance,
I agree.
if you were cooking up some kind of piece of legislation or policy to help people in Gaza, these are the things you'd have to consider, right? Now, how
No,
would this be used against us or against the ideology or against the view?
I, I agree with what you're saying, but I just want to addendum it, not even change it, but addendum a point here is to say that you will never be able to perfectly prophesize or expect how people are going to co-opt it. I think that you should build the dam, and then once you recognize that it is being privatized, you should then change it and make it more fit and make it not co-optable. Not just sit and think about, oh, how do I make it perfect in every single way so that it's like
No,
it's not corruptible? When you're not gonna be able to do that.
you're right. You're right. There's no there that would just create like analysis paralysis. You're absolutely right. But at the same time, it is worth considering at its foundation, at its core, because
I mean, it's
for the lows
definitely
of
worth
it, right?
considering.
That the dam and the control of a natural resource like water is the reality of a country like England, right? It is that. It's like yeah, it's a lot to go into. But you're right. Yes, it's not like you could make the perfect plan every single time. There'll be unforeseeable things, but it's just that you in the world we live in, it's actually a skill to be able to capture good things with good intentions and invert them. So
Yeah,
you
no,
have to
I
think,
agree. I agree. It's co-option,
yeah.
and it's exactly what they do. And the most popular points end up being the most harmful, like the immigration thing I was talking about.
Yeah, in a lot of ways. So let's like bring this back around to like like a similar point. Even like it's really just me, you, and like probably like 5 other people who are watching this somewhere, right?
Yeah.
But what when you raised the question initially on Palestine, what was the intention behind it? What did you want to convey?
I mean, I've been talking about it. Like I'm perfectly comfortable saying that I've conversed about it just recently, and I felt like I'm interested in the topic, and I want to converse about it. All I wanted to sort of convey was that I think that openly saying that a genocide is happening and that it is a horrible systematic oppression of a people is important, and just raising awareness about the topic.
No, that's perfectly fine with me. I think. Do you know what? Interestingly enough, we spent this past hour talking actually around the topic, right, in
Yeah, I
all
agree.
honesty, right? But I do think part of this discourse does raise awareness, whether it's for
Yeah,
people who are just like, I actually don't care, but what can I learn from it? You know?
yeah.
So
No,
I think in that way it's
I don't
effective.
even mind people learning about it to to progress their own progressive movements. Like, you get what I mean? Like, I see a lot of like within these spaces, I see a lot of people from whose main thing are a lot of different movements. Some of them are the trans rights movement, some of them are the Black Lives Matter movement. And even though I know for a fact that they are going to learn from this back and forth and then use it to progress their own things, I think that is immensely healthy. I think that because I think uplifting any marginalized community helps uplift all marginalized communities, and because
I
I
just can't get
genuinely
behind
want
that.
what is best for these communities.
Look,
Why
that
not?
ideal, because again, ideally it sounds correct, but then when you start actually trying to look at it from the ops point of view, is it still correct?
What like what I don't understand, like this, like what is the sort of
It's
observation that you
right. So
disagree with?
it's like so essentially like what's at the base of that type of politics? It's like a rising tide raises all ships, and in another type of way, it's like trickle down economics. That's like essentially what you're saying, right? By helping this
No,
thing,
but
we inadvertently help all these other things. Ideally, that makes a lot of sense. But now, if the shoe is on the other foot, and the Zionist says to you, by initiating the Zionist project, we are helping like control the Middle East or garner resources out of Africa.
no,
Like,
but
do you get it, right? When the shoe is
how
on
would
the
the
other
Zionists in
foot,
good faith
it becomes conflated, right?
how would the Zionists in good faith make that argument? Because your
They would make it
project,
in
the
good
Zionist
faith
project,
because
is
they believe in
built.
it.
Yeah, no, obviously. I mean,
So
well,
you would disagree, right? But from their point of view, like I was explaining via like Holocaust theology, they have the moral licensing to do this. And then if you go deeper into their belief system, like their nation was always supposed to be this like ethereal thing that just exists in the mind. But post the Holocaust, it's now manifest in the flesh and on the land. Okay, so from the people who are actually part of that project, they can make the same argument. So it
no,
becomes dangerous.
no, I think they cannot, because I don't think the Zionist project can ever operate without the expulsion and genocide of other peoples. Like, do you get what I mean?
Yes, but that's what I'm saying to you. Theologically, to them, that is justified, right? But I was trying to, I can't remember exactly the point because I had like a small debate with a Jewish rabbi, right?
Mhm.
And I was raising a point to him about how his God basically told the Jews to go and murder the Amalekites, right? Kill every man, woman, child, donkey, cow, camel, right? Do you know what his response was to that, right? He gave me an anecdote that another rabbi told him, and he said, "You think that's bad? God wiped out everybody on the planet in a flood." Okay, so within the theology, within the ideology that's built out of that theology, what's happening on the ground in Palestine, right, is absolutely sanctioned. Because there are two different parties. There are what you call Zionists and then what you call Jews that are worldwide known as Jewry, okay?
Yeah.
The people who are just Jews and not Zionists, they're the nation of Judah or whatever they call it, sorry, wherever the place is supposed to
Yeah.
be, is ideally supposed to exist in their minds and in their hearts, right? But the other people, they come out of the Holocaust theology with the view that actually we had to go through that Holocaust so we could get the land and make it a reality. So
They're
they
taking the conviction to make the land a reality.
right. So to them, what they went through in the Holocaust justifies all of the L's that they're taking or they will give out in order to achieve the project. So from their point of view, they're like the larger Zionist project expanding into Egypt and other places is a part of bringing forth Jewish prophecy, but also actual economic flourishing via their relationships with the West and America and how England gave them the land and all these other geopolitical realities. Okay,
Yeah.
so for them, helping their self helps everybody from their point of view. Just like from your point of view, helping the Palestinians helps everybody. So that's why I can't get behind that argument because it's the same type of this is a trickle down politic. This is a rising tide raises all ships type of argument.
I can agree that it is. I don't think it's a trickle down economic thing because I think it's divorced from economics. But I can see why it's
Not
a rising
really.
tide. No, but I just at the fear of repeating myself here, I do not think I do not think like the Zionist project that they sort of are ideal or like the Zionist project that they're preaching. You're saying that it's a sort of ends justify the means sort of thing.
To
I'm
them,
like, okay,
yeah.
yes, but what I'm saying is it doesn't include. I don't agree with the idea of the ends justify the means. I think that's a big red flag when you hear someone say that. It is almost always just to justify their current actions. Nothing I'm saying here is going like, okay, some people need to be hurt right now so that eventually we all live in perfect harmony. I'm saying that
This is
I'm not
true.
even saying that
No,
what I'm doing is gonna lead to perfect harmony. I'm saying people shouldn't be hurt right now.
ideally, and you're correct, right? But remember, you're all right. So how these kinds of things work? You're getting played against your own like false sense of morality or your moral code. Because a person like you might say, actually, no, it's not justified for me to hurt all these people. It's not justified. Like I'm Ukraine and you're Russia. I'm gonna bomb people with drones, right? But a person like you may invert that and say, actually, instead of me going out there and like externally expressing this, I'm gonna internally express this, right? And I'm gonna like martyrdom myself in some form or fashion, not necessarily physically, but maybe ideologically. Okay. So,
What do you mean when you say internally express something?
so for instance, like the Zionist project would be the ends justify the means externally. Okay.
Okay.
For someone who is willing to speak out against these things, the ends would justify the means internally in terms of an outcome for a group like Palestine Action. Right? So a self-sacrificial thing based on an ideology is still the same as saying the ends justify the means. Right? But instead of you harming people externally, you harm yourself internally. Right? Does that make sense?
I get what you're saying, but I feel like when you say harm, I feel like a group like Palestine Action, what they're doing is work, right? And if you're going to like characterize work as harming yourself, Well, everything that you do
No,
requires work. You need to get
no,
out there.
but
You
but
need to perform that.
right. So you're calling it work because it agrees with your ideology, but you're also what you're saying is you permit that type of sacrifice, but you don't permit the type of sacrifice that the Ukrainians are making or the type of sacrifice that the Jews are making. Sorry, the Zionists are making. Right, that's what you're saying. You're saying this type of sacrifice is okay, but that type of sacrifice isn't. So
No,
your
that's the
potential, like the material realities for the people in prison now who have been prescribed as terrorists, that sacrifice is okay, but that other type of sacrifice isn't. Now, the only way you can make that statement is based on your moral code anyway, so they could play
I
you
don't
against it.
I don't think so, because what you're describing as sacrifice is someone like putting themselves out there voluntarily
Yeah,
to help other people. Yeah, but what? Yeah, okay, but what someone else is like what the Zionist project is sacrificing is other people for
yeah.
self benefit.
Yes, but it's still people. It's still boots on the ground in the same way it was like. So, like Zizek's got this whole piece about how Heinrich managed to help his Nazi soldiers commit the atrocities they committed. Part of it was ideological, but another half of it was spiritual. So the ability to separate yourself from the action. So the boots on the ground that are actually throwing launching the missiles and shooting the kids and shit, right? They are making the sacrifice on behalf of their country. Now, in a nationalistic frame, how Zizek framed it for the Nazi Holocaust was that they would say to lose your soul on behalf of this cause is the highest that you could do. In the same way, people on the Zionist agenda say to lose your soul for this cause is the highest thing you could do. Right? In the same
Yes.
way, the Palestine Action or the protester would say, "All right, I may not lose my soul, but to lose my public access, my amenities, my possibilities, is the highest thing
Yeah,
I
but
can do." So
I can
there
even
is a
agree.
bunch of people justifying means, right? Just in different
I can
ways.
even I can even agree that they share that aspect, because I think that, well, I think when the Nazis, like what you're describing from the Nazis is like it's the purest form of propaganda, because you're convincing people of this so that you can materially gain. Like, do you get what I mean? Like, and not
Yes, this
just
is
gain
true.
like emotionally, but but gain materially. You gain from the G side of the Jewish people, or if you're a Nazi. But
But
when
no, but
someone voluntarily
that's
does
half.
that,
That's half of the story though, because most SS soldiers and those people they didn't gain from it. Most of them like murdered like dogs
yeah,
and
they were
ran
convinced
to
by this idea
Argentina and
by
all this
someone
kind
who
of
does
shit.
gain
Right?
from it.
No, but what they gained from it was ideological. It fed their
Yeah, emotional.
nationalism. It fed their drive
Yeah,
for change in that period of time. In the same
and
way,
so
with the Zionist project, it feeds that too. It feeds theology, right? It feeds the
yeah,
ideology.
I don't think it feeds the theology. It feeds the agenda, the political agenda,
Hey,
which is
it's they are got right. So from a Jewish point of view, right, the event of everything you consider the foundation of Abrahamic faiths is history. It's not a.
yes.
It's like for me as an outsider, like an atheist, like that's just a story. To them,
Mm,
it's history. Like we actually had a covenant with God, and again, like I explained with Holocaust theology, there was a splitting. There were a group of people, I think it was L. Rubenstein, who pointed out to Jewry worldwide. Actually, it's either this God that we believe to be isn't the way he is, or he was absent during the Holocaust, meaning the covenant was broken. So to the
mm.
people who would operate from, or people who would use the Holocaust as moral licensing, absolutely are doing it on the behalf of theology also.
I
So
can agree that there's a
to
sect.
them, God is on their side. Right?
I can
How do
agree
you
that
argue
there's
with
a.
that?
I agree. You don't argue. I don't think there is any argument to be had with a with that with the person who is fueled purely by faith, because faith is definitionally illogical thing. Like, do you get what I mean?
Yeah, I would
Like,
I would agree in a religious context. There is, yeah.
yeah, like, so you can't argue with that. Do you get what I mean? Like, I argue with religious people all the time, and it doesn't get anywhere, because faith is inherently an illogical thing. If you get what I mean.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, I agree that there's a sect of people who completely and vehemently agree that their beliefs are faith, but I think the vast majority of Zionists are purely politically motivated. I don't think that they care. I don't
Partially,
like.
partially, but like an interesting spanner in the works. The biggest proportion or population of Zionism is Christian Zionism.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's an excellent point. Exactly.
Okay,
Like people who
so
don't even share the faith.
they share the foundation, but not the same
They share the
outcome. Yeah.
political agenda.
No, like theologically, it's the same foundation. You know, it's like it's the God of Abraham. It's the same guy. Okay,
I think that's a
so
bit reductionist to like say all Abrahamic religions are like share the same thing. Like I don't know.
so
Like
out
Islam,
of that God comes the Trinitarian
but that's not the
concept.
same. That's
Comes
not the
Allah.
same.
It's
That,
culturally packaged different, but it's the same foundation.
no, I don't think so because religion is a very cultural thing. Like
That's what I
you
just
might.
said.
No, no, no. But you're saying that it's the same God. I'm not. I don't think it's the same God.
It is. Do the history on it, right? So
Okay, yeah, theologically, yes, but
yeah.
you will never convince a Muslim person and a Christian person that they pray to the same God because they have
We
different interpretations of Him, and those interpretations become different definitions.
what you're saying is true, but this is what I'm saying. To try and explain this to people who are already like they're epistemically binded, like I was explaining earlier on, how all these things are baked into their reality, it would seem like a waste of time. In the same way, trying to say, unaliving those kids in Gaza is wrong, right? You're expressing a matter of fact, even though it's saying something is wrong is a subjective thing,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
I
You're
agree with you.
expressing a matter of fact that people are being hurt, simply
Yeah,
put, all right? But just like you're not able to see the difference, well, to see the similarity or the fact that it is the same God that they're built on, those people can't see the matter of fact that unaliving these people isn't a good idea. Okay?
no, and I agree. That's why I don't think discussion with someone who builds their entire justification for every action that they do on faith is a productive thing because if your entire foundation is built on something that is inherently illogical and you take pride in that, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with taking pride in that, but if that is the way you view life, then there is really very little I can do to convince you of anything otherwise.
But like, so say our goals and our outcomes for how we envision society intersect. So we agree on some things, right? We would have to figure out strategies to address that. Do you know why,
Yeah.
right? Because in terms of, like I was just explaining with the epistemic framing of all these different systems, at the base of it, at the base of any legitimacy in terms of a claim to power is actually the divine right. Majority of it stems from theology. So all the systems we build on top of that, it also comes back down to that same thing. The people who set this in motion said so because God told them they could. So you
I
have to
think
figure out a strategy to attack that because that's one of the base pillars of all of it.
okay. I actually very much agree with you, and I would like to ask your opinion on something. But first of all,
Sure.
I I think I think what you're trying to say is that all political sort of advocacy or all political agenda stems from a theological point.
Not just theological. Like, for instance, to be able to say a system like academia or politics or healthcare, being a doctor, anything that relies on expertise or systems that accredit people, all stem. So I'll say it simpler. All systems that produce authorities, right, stem fundamentally from the divine right to rule.
But how does a secular university who provides like degrees for doctors
So
and then accredits them as doctors stem from a divine?
So I actually took a bunch of notes on it today. This is why I bring it up. It helps me remember this stuff, right? But fundamentally, it starts with a divine right to rule, right? And then it starts to become more, right? So power gets decentralized through various systems of bureaucracy, right? But it doesn't just happen overnight. You've got the Enlightenment period. You've got, I think China, so it was Mesopotamia, Egypt, and China were the first places to decentralize power from divine right to rule. And they started to
Okay.
produce various different tests, and then the West picked that idea up, and it was kind of like the birth of a meritocracy. But where we are today, via a guy called Max Weber, who's a sociologist, he describes it as, although we've moved beyond the divine right to rule and establish authority through power, we have now replaced a person with the system of bureaucracy. So the academic system, the accreditation in healthcare, politics, legal or logic. I forget the right way to frame it. But at the foundation of all of these different systems, what sets it off rolling, for me to be able to say I'm right about this and you're wrong about this, comes from that idea of divine right to rule. Right. So it's at the base of all hierarchical structures, at least from this view.
I agree. I agree that we replace the function of this. So, like, if we go back 2,000 years ago, I can say I am factually right about something because I have and my main reference for it is my holy book, and that gives me, like, the divine right to be correct. Do you get what I mean? But now we've replaced it by a science book, for example, that is accredited by a certain doctor.
Yeah,
You know,
but the key that bridges
you
all of this is language.
Mhm.
So that same divine right to rule also allows people to establish what is legitimate knowledge and what isn't. What is allowed to be added to the lexicon and what isn't. So the identity of a human. So for instance, like in a very colonial terms, right? I'm just going to go to a jungle, right? I don't even have a word for a jungle. There's just bushes. And I'm going to start naming things. And I'm going to start dissecting them and drawing diagrams of those things. So in order to say that what I name the thing is what the thing is called, people need to be able to agree in that system.
Yeah.
So that is what the epistemic framing is coming from. That who gives you the right to develop vocabulary and have people agree that that is what you say it is. That fundamentally stems from divine
But
right
don't
to
you
rule.
think that can come about organically?
It is organic.
No, but I mean, like, people can just, like, I don't think, like, in how language is developed, like, not one person decides what this is named or what this is not named. It comes about organically from the collective.
No, like one person has to establish, right? So in simple terms, language, without all of the fancy shit that we know about syntax and all this kind of shit, right? Language is supposed to be a pointer to something that exists in our
Yes.
physical reality. That's like the initial
Yes.
inception of it. This
Yeah.
utterance, this vibration of air, points at a tree,
Yeah.
at a rose, at a river. But conceptually, humans develop past that, and now we can start pointing to things that don't have a physical representation. So
Yeah.
at that point, in order to say that that is still a river, you have to agree with me to use this word and not that word, right?
Yeah.
At the point in where I want to describe some abstract concept, I have to walk you or educate you or initiate you into my epistemological framing to know the words I'm using and what the words actually mean, and that you too accept that these words mean this. So at the moment in which I can explain these concepts to you with language, you already belong in my epistemic framing. I don't exist in yours, you exist in mine. So
But then,
that's where it all stems out of.
but then, do you think that one person has, like, constructed and it, in any society, one person constructed the entire language and sort of
No,
co-opted people
obviously
into their...
it's not one person. It's a series of individuals, but they exist primarily in certain places. Like for instance, one of the biggest tools of colonialism and slavery, etc., was cultural erasure. To get a
Yes.
blank slate again, so you have to learn our language. You have to pick up our theological views. Right? It's necessary because we can now have you exist in our epistemic framing rather than us exist in yours. So yes, like the lexicon and the language it wasn't one person that invented it all, but it was one group which would be called a hegemony, which established it, and then people pick up through tradition and legacy of that hegemony, and keep those systems and institutions alive, which brings us to where we are now.
Okay, I can agree with that, and I can even agree with. I mean, I don't think it's about agreeing. I think it's very clear to see that that homogeny for the last millennia has been the West, and we have sort of we all sort of, like, the epistemology that we exist in sort of comes from what they decided was
Yeah.
the one we should use. But then, but
But they
I
also
feel like,
jacked stuff too. This is true.
but they also what?
They also jacked stuff as well. Like the English
Yeah,
language
yeah, no, obviously,
is
because, like, at the
is
end
a
of the,
Mongol language.
like, yeah, like, at the end of the day, we, like, you take something from every sort of past generation. But, like, like where do we sort of end up? Do we end up in a place where we can't trust empirical evidence, or like where do we sort of,
I
like, do you
think
get what I mean? Especially when we live in like a global world where different people from different cultures and different languages come to the same conclusions.
we think they do, right? But it's not necessarily true. So, for instance, like a view on time, right, from our like again our Western paradigm, kind of okay.
Mm.
It like linguistically, it doesn't track onto other cultures. So, like I can't remember
Mm.
exactly the time period it was, but it wasn't until fairly recent in human history that other cultures across the world, not just other like specific cultures in the world, began to use past, present, and future tense in their vocabulary. So
Mm-hmm.
some places would speak about events as if they're happening now, and there is only now, right? And that
Mm-hmm.
that kind of stuff frames how you view the world, or what you can and can't do conceptually. Okay, so
No,
I think it's not that you throw away the whole system; it's that you just introduce a healthy level of skepticism to what you're interacting with whenever you can, because you also have to recognize it's only this thing because someone said it was this thing and another group of people agreed upon it.
I
So
agree.
that's what you need to understand.
I'm always pro healthy skepticism. I just feel like this could end up becoming a very big excuse for anti-intellectualism. Like I just feel
Not
like
necessarily.
like when you see someone, like look at the simplest, look at like an anti-vaxxer, like, you get
Yeah.
what I mean? Like we have empirical proof that this thing will save your life, will benefit the lives of hundreds of children who would else die by the disease, and someone could come and tell me, oh, I am skeptical of the vaccine
Like,
because
yeah, that's
it,
valid. Yes, that's
do you
valid.
get, do you get what I mean? Because someone said that it does this, and
But
someone said
there's a
that the
difference.
biology does this.
There's a difference between being misinformed and being a bad actor, though, right? So there's
Definitely, but like
also
it
skepticism
gives
applied to
weight to,
that.
like that skeptic gives
So
weight to the bad actors.
so your concern is valid, but you also have to understand it's intellectuals that done the studying and codified these concepts and these languages for us to have this conversation. So it wouldn't really be anti-intellectual to embrace it.
Yeah, but who dignifies these intellectuals with that title?
This is true, right? It's the same kind of Ouroboros system. The intellectuals exist in the same system of academia, and through like structuralist analysis, they try to deconstruct these various things. You get like every now and again a very like a well followed person who introduces a new idea to it. But yes,
Hmm.
they primarily do come up through the same systems of academia and then analyze the world. It's just whether people move on with the ideas or not. So yeah, in a sense, it's like Socrates was the first philosopher, but who gave Socrates? He wasn't the first philosopher, but
Yeah,
who gave
they give,
Socrates his degree in philosophy?
but I think
Right?
I
It's
100%
kind of
agree
like
with,
that.
I 100% agree with that point. But I do think that, like in the realms of like science and math that we have now, for them to be like agreed upon with different, like take China and America, like two nations who are so diametrically opposed in culture, in history, and for them to be able to agree on the same empirical evidence of scientific discovery,
Yeah.
I think that gives a lot of credence to the validity of these
Right.
scientific
So
discoveries.
yes, they are valid, but what that also speaks to is like the philosophy of language with with people like Ludwig Wittgenstein.
Mhm.
Like so, maths is a formal language game, right? Some types of sciences, well, most sciences are formal language games, meaning the vocabulary that exists within maths, whether you're like talking about calculus or basic arithmetic, is already agreed upon terminology, so they can work with the tools they have. So yes, it doesn't invalidate maths to say that maths is invented in that kind of way. 'Cause people would disagree about maths being invented, anyways. But it doesn't invalidate the data that you pull out of it. Okay,
Yeah.
what you have to recognize is that these terms, right? That is like the at the core of structuralism. These terms don't exist in some atomized vacuum. They're connected with other
No, no.
things.
I think I if that's the sort of skepticism you're talking about, then I vehemently agree with that. I think even look at the, like, even look at how we have legal definitions of things. These legal definitions could be constructed in a way to abstain certain parties of certain things, or like I agree that the way we label things don't exist in a vacuum, and I think there should be continuous study about where they come from, who they aid, who they disadvantage, and what agendas do they push. That I agree with.
Yeah.
I just mean that it can sometimes get to a point where it aids like anti-intellectual talking points that materially harm people.
But for instance, you have the filter because you have access to the information. Now we can't always like we can't always draw on the wealth or the bank of information that we've accrued. Sometimes shit just goes past us and we don't question it. This is true. So there are going to be instances of like anti-vaxxers, like all kinds of crazy shit. In the same type of way we was describing earlier on with like identity capture, like ideological capture of things that have been progressive. The left does it as well to right ideas also. Okay, so yes, you're correct. There are going to be bad actors, and there are going to be people who take these concepts and invert them for their own reasons, right? But that doesn't it doesn't invalidate the reality of what our current world is built upon. All it should inform you
it's
of
kind
is
of like
that
the damn discussion
we have to
talking
make
about.
space. We have to make space for people to create and continue to invent new vocabulary, new potential
No, definitely.
realities. That's all it is. Because if you don't allow for the space for the creation of new vocabulary and new studies and new schools of thought, then you actually end up a reactionary in terms of epistemology.
Yes.
You start saying
Because
this,
language,
it can only be this way, and then people are like, well, historically, where's that got on us?
language is a model at the end of the day. If you develop a better way to express a real thing, then I think absolutely that should be adopted into language, like, because it's a more efficient way of expressing what you mean. And at the end of the day, language should be about expressing what you see and what you feel.
No doubt.
If you get what I mean. I don't say this to say like, oh, you should disregard the already established language. Like, I don't think we should disregard calculus
No.
because calculus has do you get what I mean? Or the way we even express calculus, because calculus might have certain roots or be made by certain people with political agenda. Calculus is a tool that works. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? You want to replace it with a different model that's even more efficient. Like, good luck to you, because I think that would be an amazing. I think that would be an amazing discovery, but it's very difficult to do.
Yeah, but all right. So exactly. So, but specifically in the realm of the sciences or maths, it's a little bit different to the humanities and like politics and even healthcare. Healthcare is half science, half humanities. Okay.
Okay.
So
I gotta agree with that.
in these other broader systems, like our education system, what we're talking about matters a lot more there than hard sciences, because hard sciences and mathematics, in terms of the language, in terms of like how would you put it, like formula, are formalized languages. They're already established as this function. This has this specific function for these calculations. So
Yeah.
so yeah, you can't just like I'm gonna just like go kick over like 3,000 years of maths because I feel like it on a Tuesday. Like, no, that it wouldn't work that way, because within something like maths and science, you have a hard answer, right?
Yeah, it's
That's
empirical.
yes.
It's objective.
That's. I was just about to say that. That's the only way the only place where objectivity can still exist in our modern time is in spaces like maths and science, but everywhere else, one has to acknowledge that truth is a social construct. So that's why it's kind of wicked.
No, I mean, I 100% agree with it. That's why I think it is kind of like, it's kind of unproductive to be continuously looking for truth, because truth is it's a subjective thing. I mean, at the end of the day, like,
Except for maths.
yeah, except for that. This is honestly what I actually hold this belief. Like, I don't think the word proof should be used in any context that isn't math, because I think that proof is almost exclusive to the realms of math. You can say I have evidence for something, but you do not have proof for something, because proof only actually exists within the realms of mathematics.
I don't know. That's an argument you could take up with people who are in that field. I ain't got no stake in that. All right.
If you get what I mean.
But yeah, I do understand what you're saying to an extent.
Yeah.
Okay. But
Very useful phrase to an extent.
To an extent, yeah, because I only know so much, right? But that being said, right, if we was like to kind of like again kind of focus it back to the main point, how does any of all of this long tangent, like this second hour and a half conversation, link back to the reality of Palestine and Gaza? Again, our views. I don't know where you are in the world, but I'm in the UK, right?
Same.
Our views on the technology we use to get this information and who decides to give this information to us is informed by all of that long shit that we just went through. Like, who is authority? What is legitimate knowledge? What is language? You know, that is all informed by that stuff. And the people who
No,
are very good at that shit, you know, they kind of
uh,
run the show.
I think our interpretation of these things are run or like are influenced very heavily by these people. And this is why I think that politics can be a sort of marriage between the subjective and the objective that we were talking about. Because objectively, you have material physical proof that a genocide is happening and there are people suffering. Now you have to unfortunately go through the
Look, I'm not making I'm not making light of it, but remember epistemic framing. What are the parameters that establish a G-side, and who said it should be that? Right. Although it's
if you want,
correct.
if
Although it's correct.
we can get caught up in the definitions of things. People
Although it's correct.
are unalive, are being people are dying.
Yeah, people are like that is to me truth. Right.
Like that is objective truth. We have evidence of that. Now,
I'm not gonna go as far as saying the
saying-
objective, but that is truth.
I feel like this is like honestly 2 years ago I would have loved to agree, but again I just feel like I've sort of begun to feel like the philosophizing of things such as this ends up gaining like giving other people material the benefit or harming them materially. But even aside from that,
Maybe.
even aside from that point, I think even something like the debate, like the idea that there's a debate now whether it's a G-side or not, comes from exactly what you're talking about the epistemological sort of framing of it and how we talk about it and who has the legal definition. Like this is a popular thing that people bring up all the time. G-side is a legal term. The ICJ did said this. Doctors Without Borders have said that, and I
Right.
think I agree with you that slows down the process of actually helping people. And I'm distraught by that, and that's why I say politics can be a merge between these things, like the objective and the social subjectives.
This is true, but though like on both sides of the fence, for the people who are pro-Palestine and anti-Palestine, they are both relying on those various different systems and dialogues, or you know, or some type of dialectic that's happening between them. Okay,
Mm.
as for the people who are actually experiencing unaliving,
Mm.
we can't experience that for them.
No, of course not. You
Right.
can only empathize.
Well, hopefully, hopefully, okay, like hopefully.
Yeah.
But in terms of what your action, like not action in that kind of way to like you know, like what the Home Office or whatever, right? Not action in that kind of way, right? But what your actions should be, or how you should orientate yourself around this issue, it really does depend on how much you're willing to be kind of ushered by those systems. You know?
I don't know. I sort of agree, sort of disagree. I don't know. Like, I just mean, like, I agree that obviously whatever action you want to do, even the process of donating, like, what does donating mean? How much is donating? How much is donating enough? Where is the donation going? All of this stuff is true and valid. But I don't like. I think that you would genuinely be causing harm to tell people to like stop and think. Or like, are you
But-
should you donate? No. I
mean,
don't mean stop and
that's-
think. Obviously, you should stop and think. But oh, don't donate because of there's a billion issues. Like,
Oh no! Look, I have that same argument with people about this smoking thing, like almost every night. Right? I express the facts of the matter, and they immediately pivot to what about alcohol? What about this? What about that? Right? So that isn't my point here at all. But I get what you're saying. Right? You want to maintain the urgency of the issue, and to put up
Yeah.
extra blocks in the way doesn't get you to where you're trying to go. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
It's very
I don't
interesting
understand
that-
that.
the smoking issue. Like, do you feel strongly about the smoking in specific?
Yeah, I do. I do.
Oh, that's cool. And like it could be from personal experience, and that's like, and again, that's completely valid. I was kind of getting back to
Yeah,
what I was talking about before.
it is partly personal experience, but it's also an ideological stance on how I see the world and how I want the world to be.
Yeah, yeah.
So
But you deciding to invest time and energy into it. I mean, like, can be motivated by the personal experience and
yeah, my proximity to the issue.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. No.
without a doubt, right? Without a doubt. Like, if you would have told me facts and information about the subject like maybe a decade ago, I wouldn't have taken it seriously.
Yeah, no, that's just kind of what I mean. But like, you want to engage with the smoking? I don't mind, but
Hey, like, look, bro. Like, it's been an hour and a half, right? We've touched on a lot of things that I didn't have any expectation of ever speaking on today, and I'm really glad I actually did speak to you about these things. 'Cause, like,
I'm glad.
where
I'm
would I
glad I,
say any of this
I'm
stuff?
glad. I'm glad I did too. I think it was. If anything, it was fun. I mean, like, you get what I mean?
Hopefully,
It was-
hopefully, I've given you something to think about. And
hopefully, I have too.
yes, you have, right? Because a lot of the stuff you're saying, I actually agree with instinctively, right?
Mm.
But I think it's in the same way that don't take this wrong. I'm not comparing the lives of people in Gaza to what I'm about to say, but in the same way where I talk to like my vegan people, and they're expressing to me the arguments on why this is ethical, why this is the right thing to do. I'm like, I hear you. You're right, right? With a little bit of fetishistic disavow. Even so, right? You being right isn't good enough in comparison to how good your argument is, how good you are at convincing somebody that you're right. Okay?
I don't know. I think
Being right
if
on its
things-
own isn't enough.
I would agree with you if we were talking about, like, I agree with the importance of self-expression. You can have the coolest, most productive idea in the world. If you can't convey it and express it, it's completely useless. But if things are self-evidently true, like the fact that you say you instinctually sort of agree with it, like that the harming and unaliving of children is happening and that we should be opposed to that, and you still want to focus on how I'm getting my argument across, I can only interpret that in bad faith. Like,
No,
do you get what I
no.
mean?
So then you maybe you misunderstand what I'm trying to say, right?
No, I'm not saying you. I'm just saying, like,
No,
if
but
somebody.
you shouldn't know. That's what I'm saying. You would take a very like you'd go past all of the like not just our conversation, but all of the hour half plus of nuance and various different angles to it to reduce it into an emotional appeal. Like if you don't respond emotionally in the way I would like you to, then you're operating in bad faith. And for people who actually are in bad faith, they'll have a field day with that. They would just say, "Oh look, I got you emotional," you know, like, and just escape card out of it. But if you take time to think about, all right, how can I better frame my arguments? Like, for instance, no one should have had to be told executing black people, hanging them on a tree and having little white children go there and take postcard pictures was wrong. No
How
one
do you convince
needed to
someone
say that.
What kind of
Right.
argument and how
So-
strong can an argument be to convince
But
someone that that is wrong?
there had to be. This is what I'm saying to you. Strategically, there had to be iteration after iteration of argumentation, documentation, strategies, real world politics, right? Real movement. But there had to be a refining of approaches.
But that
Emotion
that
alone
horrible-
didn't work.
That horrible process that you're talking about wasn't abolished through argumentation.
A lot of it was through public discourse and various different
I agree that
angles. A lot of it was.
A lot of it could have been. But you can't say that if we didn't have the American Civil War, that would have gone away.
What do you mean?
Like, I just mean, like, yes, argumentation is important, but I don't think there's any level of argumentation that can convince a racist person that a black person is as much as human as you are.
This is partly true, but not entirely true, right? Because wars are started and fought over words. Okay? It's very rare in history that a war is broken out over a physical action. It's how one interprets the action and then goes on to convey that. Alright? So words are at the core of it. Although, like, instinctively you know this is wrong, but you also got to remember your instincts are tuned to the environment you come from, the culture you come from, the moral values you hold. So they're not intrinsic to all humans everywhere. So argumentation is the best way to convey those values to other people
I
beyond
don't
like
know.
active, psychological propaganda.
I don't know if I agree that like wars is caused by words. Like most wars in human history have been fought between people who don't even speak the same language. Like
Yeah.
who can't. Like, do you get what I mean? I
But
think it is.
it was conceptualized on this side of the river and conceptualized on that side of the river. There's no doubt about it.
No, obviously,
Specifically in our modern times, we can see it.
no, obviously, like the actions were conceptualized and named and worded. I agree with you, but at the end of the day, like wars have always broken out between like because people are like have a sense of superiority, a sense of greed, a sense of revenge.
These are
Like
words.
these
Right,
are
right.
words,
So,
but they
right, how does
describe
you have to
real
ask
things.
yourself? You have to ask yourself this, right? How does one build a military in the first place? Right?
You convince people of a cause, you join them
You
together in a
need
group.
words.
Of course, I'm not belittling the
You
importance of
need
words.
argumentation.
I'm not belittling, but what is the most effective way at the end of it
Of what?
of forming this sense of patriotism?
Well, it's
It's
words.
it is action. When
No,
people
no,
from a
like
country,
fam. Right. So this is an interesting thing, right? Look, the collective is a delusion. It's an illusion, right? So a country is an imagined state.
yes,
Countries
it's like
don't actually exist.
it's a community.
Nations don't actually exist.
It's a community.
It's ideological. It's a framing that somebody's developed and plopped in your mind. So now when you go out into the world, you think, I'm part of this collective called the United Kingdom. I'm part
Yes.
of this group of people who look like this, who speak this language. That's all language. That's all an invention. So like a war could start by crossing a border. A border is imaginary. It only exists based on language. That language
Yes.
that's written down and codified that says this means something. So in terms
No,
of how you would deal with anything on a political or strategic level, words are involved. So just simply being right isn't enough. Action is important too. Don't get me wrong. Like it is, if not more important, but words is what move people.
I agree. I agree with everything that you're saying. I just think that you like like we use words to convey concepts. Like a nation is a concept. Like,
Yeah.
do you get what I mean? We use words to describe that concept, but it is ultimately that concept that holds the power, not the word.
Yeah, but you can't interact with it without the word. For instance, like the act of thinking, at least conscious thinking, requires vocabulary. A nation doesn't necessarily exist in an
No, but you can
abstract way.
feel, you can have feelings towards the collective without language.
You wouldn't be aware of a collective without language. Right?
No, but
That same
animals
view,
animals don't
about
have like if animals don't have language, but they still understand their family.
yeah, but they're like a small. Put it like this, right? In analogy form, like earlier on, when we were talking about our view of events like 9/11, of events like Gaza, they're spectated, meaning it's brought to us via medium, e.g., media. Mediums like music, poetry, like politics, TV, etc. These are the things that help to construct the collective illusion that there is a country or literature
Yeah.
or words, but they don't exist when you're not interacting with the medium. When the medium's gone away, you see your immediate surroundings, but in the back of your mind, there's a larger picture. There's a territory, but the territory itself doesn't exist.
I agree, but I think what you're trying to get at, like take an event like 9/11. 9/11 materially happened. That 9/11 is not a concept; it is an event that has happened.
Both.
All of the conceptions that we get from it, the fact that it happened in America, what does that mean? What does that represent? Who was it made by? Which group was it? All of these things are ways we interpret the event that happened. But
No
that
doubt.
event did materially happen.
Well, yes. All right. Again, I agree it happened, but there are people who don't. Okay, so there's what I'm trying to convey to you is the right. The idea that there is a larger country, that there is a larger community, that things don't just appear at your front door, requires you to keep mind of all of these concepts that you walk around, which builds up a concept of nationalism.
I fully agree. I'll be honest. Like I think we agree on most points. I think it's the finest of minutia that we kind of sort of have different ways of conveying.
Yeah, probably.
But yeah, but I gotta go in a bit. But anyways, it was really good conversation. I didn't expect it to be this engaging.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Right? What's
Yeah.
your name, bro? Like, you don't have to give a real name, but I could just call you brother if you want.
Yeah, it's cool. It's Abdul.
Nice to meet you, Abdul, bro. It was very interesting.
What's your name?
My name is Set, S-E-T.
SAT. Okay, well, if
CT.
you ever want to talk, again, honestly, I'd be interested in getting your opinions on other things.
Hey,
Like,
you're welcome anytime.
like recently, I've been doing a lot of reading on intersectional feminism, and I think it's honestly super interesting to see how much of what we sort of the rights that we enjoy and so much of the ways we think about intersectionality has come from these amazing black feminists, and I just feel like
Like, is that like a Kimberly Crenshaw?
no, it's bell hooks.
Bell hooks. Oh, okay,
Yeah.
cool.
If you get what I mean. And I'm just like, I don't know. I think because so much of our culture now is influenced by America, and so much of American culture is influenced by Black culture, I feel like I've started to slowly become so much more interested on that perspective.
They got you, boy.
What do you mean
I'm
they got me?
I'm joking on it. It's a joke.
Like what does it imply? Like what's the joke?
No, it's just like you're becoming more black. Like it's like people are finally starting to get it. No, I'm joking.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, it's funny because my closest neighbors, Sudan, is like 3,000 kilometers south, are completely and utterly black. So it's crazy how race is so much more like a social structure or a social construct like nationalism is. And you could have a cousin who like an American would look at you and say, "Oh, you guys are completely different races. How could you be related?" Whereas they're very close to you in culture and biologically. So I don't know. I think.
But there you
it's
go,
amazing.
right? That's something that a group of people in like, well, it was a bit earlier than that, but around the 1500s developed and dragged us
Yeah,
into,
exactly.
right?
Exactly. No. Exactly.
But now,
Like,
in
someone could-
2026, there's people arguing for racial realism. Right? So it's a scary world we live in.
No, it's insane. Like because my skin is a bit lighter than the average, African. Someone could say, "Oh, you look a lot more Asian, or you're probably more related to Asian people." Whereas I would probably be a lot more related to a Sudanese person whose skin is even darker than yours. Like, do you get what I mean?
Yeah, in some ways, but there's, Arab colonization and all that. Do you know,
Yeah, but,
so, old Janjaweeds and all that, man. There.
I mean,
It's
obviously
nice.
there's the history to it, but I mean, like,
Yeah, for real.
like, you get what I mean? But like the biology of it is true at the end of the day.
Yes, this is true, right? Like, again, I would love for us to be able to live in this like ahistorical utopia, but we don't.
I feel like I don't know how to say this. Not defining yourself by the history of your ancestors is not you being ahistoric.
No, it's look. I am pro self-defining, right,
Yeah.
or self-definition. I am pro that. Right? I think people should take that to its logical conclusion in every direction they can. Okay, but at the same time, I can't switch off what I know, right, or at least what I know to be
No
true.
one is expecting. No one is expecting you to. But all I'm just saying, like, take a French person for example. You can be friends with a French person, and they can support, like they can support like the Moroccan people. Like I just mean that I feel like it can be such a distraction when you go and say, oh, but then again, French colonization over the Moroccan, this and that, and I just feel like. I understand that, and that history is not light, and we learn from it, and we progress from it, and we become better. And the people who have suffered through that oppression deserve to be to have opportunities open back to them because of the oppression that they've suffered. But I just feel like it can end up being a way to sort of like limit collectively, limit people engaging with one another.
It can be. You're absolutely right. Like all of these things can drive separation. Right. This is true. Right. When specifically when using bad intentions, right? This
Yeah,
this is
exactly.
true, right? But you can't. I know, like, I have to kind of give both sides of the perspective because we live in a society now that just wants everything to be easy breezy. Just forget the past, just brush it over.
No, I don't think we should.
But the reality is, you are not just you. Like, we are all in a privileged place to be able to hold these views about how the world should be, because it's like saying, look, I've had 10 games of winning by 100 points, but I've only won by 100 points by making sure you never get off the starting block, right? And
Yeah.
now that I'm at my 100 points, I'm saying, I'm at my 100th point, I'm saying to you, hey man, who cares about points, man? Like, just forget about
No,
it. Like,
definitely.
chill. Like, no, bro, you're like 100 up based on
No,
me.
definitely.
So,
Definitely.
so
No,
like,
no, no.
why should I suddenly forget about it? It's,
No, you should
that's
definitely
the
not.
kind of world we live in. Right? People are
No,
like,
I
just,
agree.
you
I
know,
agree.
make it
I
easy
agree.
for me and my feelings. But why should I?
No, I completely agree, and I don't think the abolishment of the point system is what it is. I think that going forward, we need to first of all, I think that fundamentally we need to get how do I say this? We need to balance the points. Like, do you get what I mean? Like, you've got 100 points.
Well, it's all
You've got
abstract. It's not real, is it? It's just,
no, but it can be done with material resources.
well, in a way, kind of, but not really.
It can't be. It can't fix the social disadvantages and generational disadvantages that this race of people have experienced. Yes, but you can acknowledge that and then help it move forward.
Yes, but it's very important to also acknowledge, like, the main point I've been tugging at the whole time through this conversation, the epistemic framing of the reality you exist in. You
No,
can't, you would never, for instance, right, if someone has to tell you that, hey, you're free now and you're equal, right, you will never be free and you will never be equal. Okay, you're still underneath that person's system. Okay, so to the idea, this is what gives rise to, like, ultra conservatives and exceptionalism in ideologies, where people are like, well, if I just play the game really well, or like identity politics or respectability politics, if I just act really nice, if I just play the game, then I can have I can be on par with them, right? But it doesn't work like that.
I agree that it doesn't, because
It
there are
just
systems in
doesn't.
place. There are systems to place to keep you in check and to keep you at your social position simply because of your race or simply because of your nationality or simply because of your ethnicity.
Right,
I
so
agree.
reallocation of material resources isn't enough to solve the inequality. It's a step, but it's like, it would be like a kid is playing a game of Monopoly with fake Monopoly money, and you come and say, "Hey kid, that's fake Monopoly money. Take this real cash that's like fiat currency. It's not backed by any gold." The kid is still interpreting the money as Monopoly money because it's just as good as the Monopoly money to them because it's useless.
No, but it's not just as good as Monopoly money
It,
because
it is because the kid
no, but
doesn't
because
have the
if you go
framing
to a
for it.
if you go to a disenfranchised neighborhood who has been set up to fail economically continuously, and then
Yeah.
I come to you and tell you I will provide you with the programs that will uplift your community, better schooling, better housing, better access to resources. That
This will
does have
help.
an impact on people's
This will
lives.
help. Yes, this. I'm not disputing that will help, but you also need to understand there has to be, right, a lot of, so interestingly enough, right, one could argue a view on how we understand revolution today is reactionary because it's a throwback to old standards, old ideals, which never really worked. The truth is there has to be space for transformation so something new can flourish out of it. A lot of people equate revolution with new, but no, like, not to be all like etymological, but a revolution is just a cycle, right? You've gone
Yeah.
back around again, okay?
Yeah.
So yes, initiating these programs and trying to redistribute wealth, all these things are very good, brilliant political and economic tactics, but they aren't necessarily enough to even the playing board in terms of the social world,
No.
epistemically, right, psychologically. Those things aren't enough because they speak to a material world, which is the Monopoly game. It's a fantasy anyway. It's not. It doesn't have. It's not substantial beyond the agreement.
I don't know. Like I think it,
It's very difficult.
it's quite difficult because I think I can agree with you, but like, what is in our hands to do right now, other than vaguely gesture towards a reconstruction of our epistemology and our socialization? Uh, Other than that, like other than that flirtation with the idea, what else do we have other than uplifting these people through material means?
All right, so that isn't like so to look past like trying to combat epistemic framing, right? That is the primary tactic. If right, so for all of these things and all these systems and all of our material, like for money to even make sense, it is an agreement that this is an exchange of value, right?
Mm.
At the base of all of those things, it needs you to be in agreement with it. If you are,
Yeah.
if your time is focused in all of these other agreements, you can't make a break from the epistemic framing and create your own thing. You will always be tied and looped back in. So that would be the primary mode of addressing these things, is understanding that, hey, this worked for this period of history. Now it's time to do this instead.
I get you. I get you, but I feel like this gestures back to the revolution versus reform idea I was talking about. I think that what you're talking about is a very, well, number one, achievable, but also a very ambitious end goal. But the way we achieve it now, I think, is by, first of all, uplifting these disenfranchised people through material means, giving them more access to education, allowing them to enter the spaces where they can be represented and where they can make these changes, so that eventually we can have this, societal reform.
You're right, but what you're saying is correct in terms of how we should be thinking, but it actually reinforces the same problem I'm trying to explain to you, right? So if you want to help a bunch of people and you've already acknowledged that they're at this like lower status in society, and your view is to educate them out of that lower status, right? You're putting them through the same like epistemic meat machine that's gonna like stock their brains with all these ideas about the same system that keeps them where they are. So once they leave the initiation of academia, right, and come out back into the real world, they help exacerbate, or however you pronounce that word,
No,
the
but why
same
would they,
systems.
why do they help exactly if someone
Because that's what they've
graduates
been
and they,
taught to do.
no, but if someone graduates and becomes a politician and then they pass legislation to help the communities they came from, how are they exasperating the issue?
Now that helps in terms of incremental change, right? But if you're talking about, again, the legitimacy of knowledge, who gets to say what is knowledge and who gets to accredit, who is the accrediting body of that knowledge, e.g. academia, right? And what is the value of that knowledge outside of academia in the economic world and these kinds of things? You're pushing them through the same system, then expecting them to change the system from inside out. When all of their modes of thinking are geared towards propagating and keeping that system afloat. So they won't be able to help themselves after exiting the system. They would only just reinforce it in other ways. That's how deep it is.
Like I get exactly what you're getting at, but then my question is, what's the alternative?
Look, the alternative is to say this is what's worked before and be willing to entirely abandon it. It's dark. And now look, I don't actually have all the answers, but I'm just offering up some since you asked, right? But you must actually be willing to abandon it, all of it.
I mean, I can agree with that, but I just mean that I think that is sort of an idealistic view at things, because
Obviously,
no one, huh?
obviously.
Yeah, but then again, I am asking for like the actual material things that we can do, because no one, that you can't ask people to sort of abandon all of their internalized framework. It's just not something that's feasible
No,
on a collective
you
scale.
can't abandon it, but you have to be willing to, right? Which is what initiates the
Yes,
struggle in the
we have to
first
be we have
place.
to be we have to be willing to, but the
Yeah,
way we get through that methodically and in what's it called, the word you said, incrementally,
yeah.
is through the uplifting of these marginalized people.
In a way, yes. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm not disputing that you have to help and through charitable means, but you have to also understand the method of what you're doing and why you're doing it, because essentially you would view what you're doing as uplifting people, but at the same time you can put their very, their potential at risk, right? You can create things like tokenism, right? It gets very deep, okay? For someone to like come up to the realization that I'm talking about in terms of, all right, the very language that I'm speaking is enforcing certain issues, not just on me, but people who look different to me in different countries and different places. You have to be willing to contradict that, what that means to exist, how you exist. So there's only two roads you can take. You can choose to exist within the same system and just live a life committed to subversion, or you could choose to enact something radical, whether it's like academically radical or politically radical, right? But they're the only two choices you've really got.
I'm all for sort of radical reform. I really am. I just think the way we do it comes through this incremental uplifting of marginalized people, and that's how we reach this sort of revolution. Because I don't think like revolutions don't happen in a day in days overnight. Like
I'm not
we can't.
pro-revolution, I'll be honest with you, but yeah.
You're what?
I'm not pro-revolution. I'm not counter-revolutionary either. But
Yeah.
as I
No, I
explained
get.
to you, like these ideas, we're reaching back to something that has already been done, something that the system has already captured. Hence why we kind of frame it through this Marxist analysis of material realities. Those aren't the same things in 2026 as they were in what, like 1800s or whatever.
No, no. Of course,
It's not
of
the same
course.
reality.
Of course, it's not the same environment. Of course, it's not the same social scene. It's not, but that's why we need people from this time today to adopt Marxist ideology and implement them onto the frame of 2026.
No, they need something else,
Well, you keep saying something else.
something
Like,
new. All
yeah,
right.
well, that is
So
new. That is new.
all right. So we build
Marxist.
on what we know, right? But
Yes,
but ideally to
Marxist.
produce something new.
Yeah, but like again, Marx is built upon the ideas of people before him. Like this is what we do
True.
as human
Yeah.
beings.
No doubt. No
We
doubt.
we build on to create something new. Like we understand Marxism now, but Marxism was probably understood as like the sort of contemporary something else back in the 1800s. Like, do you get what I mean? And now
Yeah,
it has
possibly.
become
Yeah.
Marx. It has become Marxism to us, just like a lot of contemporary ideas we have now will be interpreted in the future as the contemporary whatever we had now. Sorry, it's like long-winded, but I hope you understand. I hope you understand what I'm saying. I just mean new ideas come from implementing modern situations onto older ideas.
Nah. That's the same reactionary politic, right?
Well then, so you want to come up with a wholly original
All right. So
idea?
what one thing that needs to be taken into account, right, is we need to be able to systematically ironically take account of where we are in history, right? What are the various systems and institutions that we exist with? Some of them have been existing for ages, as I told you. Epistemically, they're based on people being bound to tradition, right? Which is what keeps authority in place, which is what keeps legitimacy
Yeah.
upheld, okay? So first you have to take stock of what is actually going on, right? Which is almost, it would seem impossible to do, to get a really holistic picture of where we are. But what you then have to do is update the context, right? So people of the past, at least in like the black diaspora, have thought about taking Marxist ideology and transposing it onto black reality, right? Whether it's black reality in the West or in Africa. People like Kwame Nkrumah, okay?
Yeah.
developing their own philosophical system. Now, to develop a whole philosophical system like conscientism is a bold step, and it was a massive bold step for the time in which when he did it.
Yeah.
But that's an example of what you might need to do. But it would go further than that. It would be as radical to say, all right, now we're going to create a closed circuit network where we develop our own language.
Well, yeah, well,
That's fucking difficult.
it is.
Excuse my language. Right?
No. It is difficult. I agree with that. But like, I feel like we're just kind of.
Look, it's not like we're gonna deliver the revolution on TikTok with like my like limited pseudo knowledge
I'm not saying.
and your like activism. It's not gonna happen that way, okay?
It's not gonna happen. I just feel like it all comes down to this revolution versus the reform thing. What can we do materially today? Like, okay, I agree. We cannot free disenfranchised people wholly from the chains that bind them on an intrinsic level, but we can help them do that.
Well, in terms of right, so when you say material, right, what are you speaking to?
Like how people from certain backgrounds face material disadvantages because of the backgrounds they come from.
Are you talking about labor, or are you talking about currency in terms of value exchange? Are you talking about property? Are you talking about textiles? Are you talking about foods? Right? When you say material,
Like not all of these things. Certain communities could have favorable abundances of certain things, but there are going to be other communities who have an abundance of almost everything.
all right. So the kind of like, again, I don't even take what I'm saying to be radical. It's just like a middle of the road view, right? To establish what is considered material gain or material reality still requires that layer of idealism in terms of ideology. Like, what is the framing for all the things we're going to do? Why do I buy the type of toothpicks I buy? Why do I buy the type of shirts I buy? Why is it made with the specific materials we chose to make it with? Right?
Yeah, but
those things inform what you describe
those
as
things
material
inform, but
reality.
There is a base level where I need food, I need shelter, I need water.
Facts, and that is what keeps most people deterred from getting to the level where they can think about, how do I get the food? How do I get the shelter? What is the means in which this is provided to me? Again, it's part of the same Marxist analysis of exploitation on the way, and fencing off of resources. All of this is true, but we already know this at this point in history. So like I said, in terms of knowing what the material things are, knowing what, let's put it this way, the industrial landscape, right? Who's responsible for water? Who's responsible for gas? We know these things. We know these systems. What you would now have to do is frame the ideology of how you're going to reproduce these in a different place, away from this place. Because you can't really say like, all right, I want to restart everything. Not necessarily restart, but like, I want to do things differently, but I want to do it here. Right? What would be the point? Right? He already has a system.
Yeah, but the system here is not helping the most vulnerable people.
Well, this is how this system here is designed, right? You need to exit the system.
No, we want to change the system.
All right, so I'm not gonna say you can't, because I'm optimistic in terms of what is possible, right? But in England, how we exist today entirely depends on exploitation. There's no two ways about it. From slavery to feudalism to capitalism to techno-feudalism, all of it depends on exploitation. So you can't expect, like you were saying, like, we want to uplift marginalized people by sending them through education and universities to come out and change stuff. You can't expect people to go through the same system of exploitations in order to create a change. You need to actually remove them from that environment.
No, but people have gone through that system, and we created something like the NHS. Like, we created something that is built for for everyone who exists in this on this island to get a human right like healthcare for free.
Yeah, but you realise like why the NHS was produced? It was the Red Threat or the Red Scare, right? Because socialism was making so much grounds in Europe, like inland Europe, mainland Europe. that after the war there had to be concessions to guard against that full-on communism. So a concession like National Health Service was something that was put forward as a socialist project. Right? But these are like, you're right, these are incremental changes which make our country like one of the best countries to actually live in the Western world. But what I'm trying to say to you is, look, if you wanna improve the country you live in, it's totally fine. I want to improve the country I live in, but you have to be realistic about what it is you actually want. Then, what you're gonna do is you're just gonna improve the same system designed to exploit you, so it could just exploit you more efficiently, right? That's it.
But I don't. Let's say. I didn't hear that story you were saying before. I did read a lot about how the national healthcare system was made and implemented. None of what I read mentioned the things to do with the Red Scare. But let's say what you're saying is correct. Did that not help? Like the NHS does not help oppress the people of the UK more efficient.
Okay, that's a view, but that's actually incorrect, right? Because it required the actual physical labor of black bodies from the Caribbean and from Asia, right, to implement it. Okay, to rebuild England after the World War, it required the various different colonies and America.
Yeah.
So it required exploitation to get it back up and running, even though it's a socialist project.
Listen, I agree.
So it depended on it.
No, I agree that it required that. And going forward, because the NHS was the first step onto a more socialist thing. I just mean that, like, I don't know, because
I understand.
it required that. Because it required to build that doesn't mean that every single other socialist step requires that.
No, I'm not saying it does, right? But remember, like, you put me into a corner and you said, all right, so what should we do, right? As if there was like a panacea answer I could give you. But the only thing that even comes close to that is actually confronting the epistemic framing that we've been given. That's the only thing that comes close to it. Everything else is just slight tweaks and improvements on what already is. But if you want something new, you need to start with new epistemic framing. What counts as knowledge, what doesn't, right? New language, etc.
I think our central disagreement here is that I am the genuine belief that little tweaks and incremental changes to the system will eventually lead to the more inclusive and providing system that we are envisioning faster, more realistically and more efficiently than the complete upheaval of the system that we have now. I think that's.
But I'm in agreement with you, right? My view, like, ultimately, if you track back through this conversation, my view wasn't like a pro-revolutionary view. I tried to explain that to you already. Like, I don't care about that. That's a captured ideology, right?
Okay.
But in the context of what we're talking about, the best you could actually hope for is making these social improvements where you live. Hence why I'm talking about banning smoking, right? That's a reality I'm cognizant of, right? But because you asked, right, what would be the way to achieve that other thing, right, the bigger type of reality or the greater reality, it would be that. It would be to start again by examining what the foundations of all of this is, right? And it's language, it's what is knowledge and what isn't knowledge, who establishes the authority, and like I explained to you, almost every system of authority historically in this side of the world is based on divine right to rule. So I get to say this is knowledge. I get to establish institutions. I get to establish currency, etc. On and on and on. Okay, so if you know that's at the base of it, and you want to do something new, then you start with a new base. That was the point.
I guess I kind of got lost, but if you agree with the first sort of prompt I was saying about like the best, most efficient way to reach that envisioned world we were talking about is these little incremental changes that then change the entire system, then I guess we're in agreement.
No, just to be clear, I think we can only implement improvements, right? But in terms of reaching like an ideal outcome, I wouldn't even know where to begin what that ideal outcome is, right? but yes,
Yeah,
like small
we
improvements.
can
Yeah.
agree on that, and that ideal outcome would look different for me than way than it would look for you. But what we can do right now and what we should do is the continuous uplifting of our communities and the disenfranchised people within.
All right, as long as you agree that Zionists are allowed to think that too.
Yeah, the Zionists don't think.
See, right? You see? So
No, but empirically they
there you
don't.
go, right? That's not true. We already went through it. It's not true. They absolutely do think that
No,
they're
they do
improving
not.
conditions for Jewish people. They do.
The Zionist ideology only functions by asserting the supremacy of one community over the other.
Yes, yes. Welcome to England. All right, this is where you are too.
I'm not saying England is a perfect country.
We just walked through the exact same concessions
I'm not saying
made to be
England
here.
is a perfect country.
No. Hey, look, there is no perfect country. Right?
I agree with that.
What
I-
what I said was really said in jest, just to make you like to double take and think, right?
I agree, but I don't.
That's it.
Like, that's why I'm saying that the Zionists cannot agree with my point because their ideology is built upon the supremacy of one community over the other. They do not want to uplift other communities.
That is okay, right? That is what I can tell you. Is look, I'm not saying it's okay that they don't want to uplift other communities. I'm saying it's okay that you interpret their ideology in that way, right? Because they have
What
a
other
set of
way is there to
beliefs,
interpret that?
and you have a set of beliefs. I have a set of beliefs, and he has a set of beliefs. All I'm trying to say to you is, at the base of it, right? You as a pro-Palestinian and them as Zionists, you're both operating from your ideological frameworks with an ideal future in mind. Right? You have your people, they have their people. So if you can always keep that in mind, then you could see what are the pros, what are the cons, right, on both sides of the fence. They do, not all of them, obviously, there's bad actors in each group, pro-Palestine and anti-Palestine, right? There's bad actors in both. But they all think they're doing what's best for them and their people.
Yeah, what I'm saying, like what I was saying, is what's doing the best for you, your people, and everyone around you. But they operate purely on what is best for you and your people.
What do you mean?
I believe that when we operate on uplifting other communities as well as ours, we all benefit. They operate on the belief that they only benefit when they uplift their community and diminish other communities.
Right. So, and again, it's what you're saying is a valid belief, but as what I would consider also a valid critique, as I explained to you earlier on in the conversation, it's essentially the same type of a rising tide lifts all boats, or trickle down economics. Okay, your view is that by focusing on this group and this issue, I can inadvertently or implicitly help other people, which is some truth to that. But you also have to recognize the people sat across the table from you also have a view that is similar to yours, but it's just with different outcomes.
No, they do not. We keep going back. They do
I'm
not
telling you,
have the same
look,
thing.
my job isn't to humanize them or say they're right. I'm just giving you something to think about. All right. So I put it to you another way. Right. If you can look at your strategy, right, and you can see what could go right and what could potentially go wrong, you can think about the game on the other side of the table and what in their strategy can go right and what in their strategy can go wrong. That's all I'm presenting to you.
I appreciate that you putting out, but all I'm saying is that when you say what could go right with their strategy, what could goes wrong with their strategy, I just think that their strategy is built off of something that is diametrically opposed to my strategy.
Yes.
Is
that's why you're in different teams.
Yeah, and I just mean no, but I just mean I feel like there's something being misunderstood. I feel like on a definitional basis, their strategy does not hold pros to my from my stand.
And you're supposed to feel like that. That is what it is to be ideologically opposed. But the other team has goals and outcomes as well, just like you have goals and outcomes.
Yeah.
But But if you want to be able to, all right, so from a rhetoric place, what you're saying is on the ball, right? As a leftist critique, we are supposed to weaponize the morality against the ops, right? That's just one of the biggest tools of leftism, right?
But on any political, people weaponize morality.
Some ideologies are a bit more underhanded than weaponize morality, right? But on the other hand, right, you can't also find yourself in a place of a cult member where you say my side is all good and all righteous, and that side is all bad and all evil. Now, I'm not saying that as to say you're the same as the bad guy, because I don't believe in those kinds of things. But you always have to be aware of the other steps the other team is making. Okay?
No, listen, I completely agree, and that's why I think, on a fundamental level, power should always be decentralized. You should be constantly critiqued in the realm of politics for your views and for your policies or how you implement these things. You should be constantly be critiqued by someone else, by the opposition. I just mean like when we talk on this specific issue, I'm diametrically opposed because they disagree with
what you believe.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, but you disagree with what they believe. You're like,
yes,
I know what you're saying. Like, what you're saying is right. You're saying what you're supposed to say, right? But I'm showing you there's the other side of what you're saying, and they think the exact same as you. They think they're right.
No.
They think they're the good guys.
Yes. They think. I agree that everybody thinks that they're the good guy, but like if we're being real here, there is a good person, and who, like by our definition, who works to uplift other people around them, and there is a person who strives and like works off of invalidating the people around them.
This is true, right? But all right, so here's an example of how this plays out. Like I tried to explain earlier on, there are people who do this overtly, and then there's people who do this like accidentally, implicitly, because it's baked into their system. Remember we was talking about earlier on, like how within whether it's Judaism or Islam or other places in the world, like things like anti-blackness, things like homophobia are all baked into their culture. So some people do it on purpose, some people do it by accident. Okay.
Yeah.
It's the same in this context, right? Because I kind of got distracted, right? Your views on what makes a good person are entirely based on your framing. So what I was going to explain to you is this, right? At the point in which someone is expressing anti-blackness or homophobia or just like what we would consider a fringe ideology, look at it like a family tree, okay? They are the child of, let's say, a great-granddad that is an ultra-Nazi.
Yeah.
Where they are as a child, they're not directly responsible for the actions of the ultra-Nazi, but they follow in the footsteps of the ultra-Nazi by expressing his ideology. So at the point in which the grandchild of the ultra-Nazi is just espousing views that in his world is completely normal, the bad things that we call out, the bad things in his epistemic framing, are already baked into his reality. So the Zionist is like another extension of that family tree, right? In his world, these things are correct. They are the standard. Just like in the West, what's considered white hegemony establishes the norm, therefore establishing the standard. And anything that deviates with that is considered wrong in this framing. So now
it's weird. It's not normal. It's not common sense.
Right. So now when you are here saying, actually, right, I'm like diametrically opposed to Zionism because the means in which they do what they do, that's your epistemic framing, saying that this isn't the norm where I'm from. Their epistemic framing is saying what you think isn't the norm where we're from.
Yeah.
That's the context I'm trying to explain to you. Right?
Okay. No, I mean I agree. I mean, I guess I fundamentally agree with that, and that's why we're in opposition, I guess. But I mean, yeah.
It's like it's absolutely okay for you to sit up here and say they're the bad guys, but you also got to remember what or not remember, you also got to think about what leads up to you being able to say that they are the bad guys, and just think about that.
And in all fairness, I never even made like I don't like falling back on this idea of they're good and they're bad and I'm good and I'm not. All I'm doing is saying that I oppose this rhetoric and I oppose this rhetoric because of 1, 2, 3, 4 reasons.
Which is fine, right? And it's fine. It's legitimate. But remember, earlier in the conversation, being right ain't enough. Your argument's got to be convincing. That's it.
I mean, sure, yeah, sure. Your argument, I guess, it gets to a point where like how convincing the argument thing is subjective. For someone, it could just be saying, yeah, children are being unalived, so that's a convincing enough argument. For someone else, oh, you have to explain to me the cultural and political nuances of what makes these specific children in this specific time in this specific country being unalived a objectively bad thing. So
Yeah.
it's like, yeah,
Because if someone says to you, just in like just blatant like normal English speak, why should I care? You need to be able to give a reason that is suitable to that person if your intention is to convince them to care.
yeah. And I guess it ties back to the other point you were saying about like who are you talking to? And I guess the reason you're going to give is always the reason that matters the most to you. And if that isn't good enough for that person, then maybe that person isn't for you. Like maybe this isn't the person that you are going to be able to convince, and maybe you'll be able to convince someone else better.
Maybe you should just get into politics and figure out how to speak to that group of people, that demographic.
Yeah, maybe you should.
I mean, shit, it's worth it. Think about it. So, like, look, if you again, there's on the other side of the fence, right? They're the people who are doing whatever it is to justify the ends, right, or the means, and then on this side is you, right? What it might take for you to justify your ends or the means, that I'm confused, right, is figuring out how to best convey this message. You don't necessarily have to do anything evil, not evil, like anything that is illegal.
Yeah.
Just that is what you should focus on. If it is a priority to you at that extent, what does it take for me to convey this message in a way that I can say it in this setting, I can say it in that setting, I've got this retort, I've got this fact to point this conversation in the right place. Oh, I'm dealing with someone who's abrasive and like obtuse. What is my like psychological tactic for that type of person, right? If this issue is an issue to you at that level, then you can plot those points and address it like that. Like,
I think I get exactly where you're coming from, and I can see why. I can see your point on why that should be your main thing. I do disagree with you though, because I think that there's a lot of people. In fact, I think the majority of people you are going to meet where there is no argumentation or rhetoric that that is going to work with them. Like again, talking back to this idea, like a guy in the 1800s who lynches unalives a black person and has their children walk out. There is no argumentation that is ever going to convince this guy that your point is correct. I think that at the end of the day, it is your actions, it is your volunteering, it is your activism, it is your donation.
I disagree.
Actually.
I disagree. Right.
Well, what can you tell that guy?
It's that you haven't figured out the strategy for that guy, and maybe that guy is not significant enough to even matter to your strategy. Right? But to say that there isn't a way to convince that person is wrong, because somebody has managed to convince that person to do the things that they're doing now. So that means it's possible.
No, who convinced that person to stop? Which?
Right, so
I don't know
what do you think? Right, so again, because this is all like interconnected, right? Nazism, Zionism, racism, all of these things are interconnected. But what it starts as, the initial inception of the seed is dehumanization.
Yes.
All right. And from that seed of dehumanization, you can now enact all kinds of atrocities. Right? Yeah. But someone has to plant the seed of dehumanization in you to ignite your prejudice, to ignite your sexism, your racism, like your xenophobia, right? tribalism is actually another epistemic invention of colonialism, which didn't actually exist before they invented it, right? This is what I'm trying to explain to you. Excuse my language, but it's very deep. Okay, tribalism didn't exist until they invented it.
When I say tribalism, I just mean a them versus us mentality.
Yes, now that is something that is psychologically true, right? But all I'm trying to say to you is, yes, there are going to be people and individuals, even in my own life, that I've come up against in the past and thought, that there isn't any talking to this person. But the reality is that I met my limits. But it doesn't mean that was the reality in terms of strategy. Like, if I wanted to be like an evil genius and say, I'm going to focus my attention on getting this guy and getting this guy to do exactly what I want him to do, I could. But I met my limits, and this is as far as I'm going with this person,
I don't know if I fully agree, because if someone's if that person is aided through like faith, something that is illogical, there cannot be a logical argument that you make that will dispel them away from this faith.
So it may not be an argument in the classical sense, right? But it's a walking through of their contradictions. That is kind of classical, but right. So me and you are engaging in a dialogue, right? We're having a conversation.
Yeah.
But you can also have a dialogue with wider society through things like media, through things like social engineering, through things like design, how you design a playground, how you design a bench, how you design a bus stop. You can also have a conversation with the public in other ways.
Yeah.
So if you was to say, yes, that person is a bigot, yes, that person is a racist, they're even a psychopath to some extent, to act on the things they're acting on, what my job is to do, right, is to make my my design psychopath proof, sociopath proof. So I can now implement the structure around this group of people and bring them around to my way of doing things. Even though they will still have the seed of hate in them, even though they potentially still may do something crazy.
Yeah, and I can agree with that.
If I really care, I will go to the lengths I need to go to.
Yeah, I think we can agree. I think you're just saying that we sort of need to, in a sense, if I'm being honest, bend over backwards for these people so that we can get to the point where we can convince them. Whereas
I wouldn't say it that way.
But if you're saying we need to put that much manpower into convincing this person whose entire beliefs, whose entire way he has this belief is through faith, which is an inherently illogical point to have, then I just feel like you're wasting time and energy.
You would be
an investment that's just not worth it.
You would be if it was something trivial, if the matter wasn't significant enough to the course of human history. But you wouldn't be if you're thinking about geopolitics or population coercion and things like this, right? Or psychological warfare, right? Psyops in short. It wouldn't be a waste of time because it serves a greater purpose down the line.
It does. I just think speaking to the average person, showing them the atrocities that is committed by whatever G state, and having that average person come over to your side, helping the people who are having the G side being committed towards them through your volunteering and through your actions will lead to more benefit than trying to convince the white evangelical American in the Southwest that actually Israel isn't that bad. Do you get what I mean? That's what I'm saying.
You what again? I'll say it 100 times. You can be right, but still not get to where you're trying to go. All right. Think about it. For instance, a guy like Rupert Murdoch, one of the owners of most of the media in our country and has been, not just our country, in America and a few other places in the world. People like that, or even Jeff Bezos recently bought a left-leaning paper or something like that. So these rich people do this. Why do they buy the media outlets? To perpetrate or to push out their message, okay?
Yeah.
So at the point when you are sat down after work and we're eating our dinner and we see a news flash come on the TV, that whole process of where we are, what we're doing, and what is being shown to us is part of someone else's agenda. So in the same way, you can be flooded with information and information overload. So the general public can get all the information about what's happening on the ground, and it could be used as a tactic to actually desensitize them to that issue and not inform them on the issue. That is the world you're living in today. But those people who do that take it as serious as I was just saying to you. If your long-term goal is as deep as it needs to go, then yes, there will be like social coercion. There will be psychological warfare. And it will be worth designing the park so that guy can think exactly what you want him to think. Right? People are thinking on this level. But if your view is just like, I'm just going to come on the internet and hope that this guy I speak to is going to agree with me, it's effective to an extent, but not to maybe actually helping people on the ground. All right.
I mean, I was doing this mostly. I don't think what I'm doing right now is just actually helping. I was just more of having a conversation with you. But either way, I've had a pretty good time, and I enjoyed talking. I gotta go now, but yeah,
It was fun talking to you as well, man. All right. If you ever want to listen back to this conversation, you can find it on the Culture Crack YouTube channel. Like, just go through it. Like, just you know, see some shit, right? Okay. Right. But it was fun talking to you as well, bruv. Or it was Abdi or Abdul.
Yeah.
Like, anyway, you should probably remain anonymous considering your views, right?
Yeah.
I'm just joking. It was interesting speaking to you, and I'm glad we spoke about this.
What did you say?
Hey? I said it's probably better to remain anonymous considering your views. Like let me take the heat.
my very radical anti-G side views. Yes.
No, they're not. But this is the thing, right? They're not radical, right? Because the fucking Overton window and like the overlay, the over pushing of the narrative already. This is what I'm trying to say to you. Like, people are overstimulated with news on Gaza to the point where they don't care. They know, but they don't care. Right? Yeah. That's what I'm saying to you, right? It works in the opposite way too. But yeah, anyways, protect yourself in your beliefs, right? Because yes, even though I'm having a playing both sides type of conversation with you, there's someone who will listen to everything that's been said here and say that shit is fucking dangerous, and you know, get them.
Yeah, no, I get it.
All right, so just look after yourself.
Alright, cool.
All right,
see ya. Talk to you.
take care. Like 3 hours in. All right, it was very, very nice to speak to you. I was not expecting to speak about this topic at all. So appreciate you, bro. Alright, folks, if you ain't hit the subscribe or the follow button, you should do that now. And hopefully you see my black ass again at some point. Maybe, you never know, maybe you should just go back with a sieve and take all the diamonds and nuggets you can from this interview and just forget you ever met me, alright? But that being said, good night.